Znów coś nie wie. Znów coś nie wie.
Earthlings, welcome back. My name is Storm's Fury and this is Zero News. And today for you, I have absolutely nothing whatsoever. In fact, I'm going home. That's the end of the interview. No, today I finally got that man that I wanted for a long time, and an excellent chance as well for many of you to have a few questions answered that I believe some of you have. Is a guy that I look up to, and I think, as the title says, is the best speaker in the movement by far. So, introducing Richard Inman. Welcome to Zero News, Richard.
Good evening, Tom. How are you? And it's probably
Right.
it's the old Carl thing, probably the best speaker in the movement. So
Probably yeah.
I let other people
probably.
That, but I'm not going to make such silly boasts, because what will happen is next time I go on a platform, I'll fall off the stage and bang my head or something. So we'll not go down the road of giving me an even bigger head than I've already got, Tom. So, it's good to be here, mate. It's good to be here. Cheers.
No, it's good to have.
Pause light. I'm sorry, it should have been Carlsberg.
Yeah, no, I'm feeling like empty now. I haven't got one, so yeah, I'm stick to the.
Is it?
Yeah, it's true. That's absolutely true. We'll have to figure that one out. Get the studio and the other stuff, the DMT.
$100 million from $100 million.
Oh my god, that was unreal. So everybody, most of you, I hope, will probably know Richard. Some of you are new and won't. And Richard. And I've got to say, by the way, just so that you guys know, there's many things I don't know about Richard. I've only just started speaking to him, and before now, I think I had a very similar perspective as many of you. So, for the people that don't know him and the people that sort of know these little bits, Richard, hopefully you wouldn't mind starting maybe a little bit at the beginning, and just a little bit of background on, well, a little bit of everything about yourself, where you've come from, and how you obviously come from Northern Ireland. Can you tell us a little bit about that, if you could tell us a little bit about the service and how you came to be here?
Yeah, I guess that's probably the best place to start, is looking at how I got into the movement and how that was informed by basically what had happened, in the 50 years before I got involved in this. 49 and a half years before I got involved in this. Basically, I joined the army when I was 17 and a half, and my first active service posting was to Northern Ireland. That was, obviously, you can do the maths, that was back when Northern Ireland was a very interesting place for a soldier to come in the 80s. It was. I'll be honest with you, I enjoyed it. I loved the excitement of going up patrol and
Really, it was actually.
It was a buzz. Listen, anyone that says they didn't enjoy the service on active service, I just wonder why they joined in the first place, to be quite honest with you. But there were obvious dangers. I was involved in shooting attacks, bombing attacks against me, and that sort of thing. So as a sort of 18, 19-year-old, that kind of colors your view of things, and makes when you come to the realization that these people are actually really trying to kill you, and you have friends who have legs blown off, friends that are killed, and so on and so forth. It kind of makes you look at the world in a slightly different way, because most 18, 19-year-old kids are just going to the pub, smoking a bit of blow and having a laugh, whereas obviously life kind of
you shocked me the other day when you said that you and certain friends that still look under the car to make sure.
I have security at the house, and I would still be very, very security aware. You never stop that, and that's because of the situation that still exists in a very, very low level in Northern Ireland, it's not. I mean, it's nowhere near as bad as it was.
Is it sort of rumbling under the surface,
Well, it
or?
always does. I mean, you know, Jerry Adams very, very famously a few years said about the IRA that haven't gone away, and they still haven't gone away, and the dissident Republicans haven't gone away, and you know, so there is still a threat to soldiers, ex-soldiers, policemen, prison officers, and so on and so forth. But you can't let that, you know, dictate your life. But what you do to mitigate that, you take precautions. You have security. You have security at the house. You're security aware. So that still is in the back of your mind, but it's not as big a threat as it used to be. I mean, when I first came over here, every morning you turned on the news and there was a body count. I mean, you know, that's just the way it was. It's not like that now. Thank goodness. You know, we have it.
Yeah.
There's a whole.
So when you did,
you know, how we got there.
sorry, when you did service, you must have been through some of the worst times.
Not the. I mean, the worst times were obviously in the early 70s. So by the time
Yeah.
I came over here, it wasn't as the uncontrolled violence was not there, but there was very targeted violence, and the attacks by terrorists and the attacks that the security forces carried out against the terrorists were a lot more planned and controlled. It was on both sides. There was a lot more professionalism, which obviously made it in a way kind of more dangerous than it would have been in some ways in the early days. And you know, the IRA was a very well-oiled, well-trained fighting machine. That said, it was completely infiltrated by the British security services and the IUC special branch. So it was almost like you were living in a sort of thriller movie, because there was a tension there all the time that was palpable and you could feel. So that was my service in Northern Ireland, and I did 2 years active service where I did, you know, West Belfast, South Armagh, you know, all the sort of hot spots, and it was. I'll be honest with you, I enjoyed it. I mean, it gave you a real sense of that you were doing something good, that you were protecting the community, both sides of the community, Catholic and Protestant, from terrorists, and you knew that what you were doing was worthwhile, and you also knew you were part of something far bigger than yourself. So that was good, but to back it up a little bit.
Did you ever feel? Actually, just before I ask that,
yeah.
If there's any mods on, could you please share this wherever you can? Because today I haven't got the ability to share like I normally do, and I normally put it on all platforms, and there's a lot of notifications not coming out.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah,
Richard.
the guys that are watching it on my platform as well, just like and share it everywhere, because again, I haven't advertised the feed. This is just we did plan it, but you know, it's like you get busy, we haven't advertised it. So if you're watching, I can't even see how many people are watching tonight. So if you're watching on my channel, just like and share it, because it's good to get as many people on as we can while we're going live. Sorry, go on ahead, Tom.
No, and the same for Children Matter. If anybody's on Children Matter is watching, please share it and do what you can for us.
Again,
I was just wondering about the.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Richard.
I just want to give a shout. The Children's Matter thing, again, that's a really worthy cause. So if people are on my channel, get across to Children's Matter and have a look at what Katie and the guys, and I think Sean's involved on Children's Matter as well.
Yes, he is. Yeah.
Give those guys a thumbs up and follow their channel as well, because we want to obviously build a network of lots of channels that are kind of interlinked in different ways.
And it's a channel with I think I can't remember how many now, but it's something like 20 different causes on, and it's actually not riddled with backstabbing politics, stuff like that. They are genuine. They're so driven with their causes that they don't have time for that. So it's pretty amazing set of people. But no, I was wondering if ever, and it may seem like a stupid question, but I'm a bit naive about some of this. If you ever felt torn between the causes in Northern Ireland?
No, not at all. I was. I'm very boring in one way, because I've thought, like, I think now for the past, well, since I was probably 18, since I was 17, 18, I've had exactly the same ideology. I've always been patriotic. It was very obvious to me that the IRA were the enemy. Yes, there were grievances at the beginning, and we can talk about that, maybe it's on another feed. But the reality is, when I came to Northern Ireland, there was one protagonist that was creating murder and mayhem, was slaughtering innocent people, and that was quite simply the IRA. And of course, that story's been completely, again, as so much of British history, it's been airbrushed and a different spin's been put on it. But I was there and I know what was happening. And the IRA were bloodthirsty murderers and terrorists, and they had to be fought to the point of a standstill, and that's exactly what happened.
We did the unthinkable.
They did. They did. But you see, the thing is that people don't realise the IRA were defeated.
Yeah, and we surrendered.
What sadly, what happened in Northern Ireland was John Major and then Tony Blair after him managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
whatever people try to tell you, and the IRA were allowed to keep face, but the concessions that were made to them, particularly by Tony Blair, were nothing less than treasonous and treacherous, and a great betrayal of all people of Northern Ireland, both Catholic and Protestant. And again, we'll talk about it a bit later on, but we see exactly the same thing happening now with the far left and with the SNP and with groups like Black Lives Matter. So there's a lot of comparisons that you can draw, and that's one of the reasons I got involved in the movement, because I could see the way things were going in the UK with the Islamic terrorism and the Islamic extremism. That was the main threat then, and it still is, I believe, a very, very serious threat. And of course, the left were bubbling away in the background as well. But from the point of view of the parallels, there are a lot of parallels. And myself and a couple of other lads from Northern Ireland have constantly been saying to people in England, we've seen this before. We know how it ends. So please listen to what we're saying. We're not, we've been doing this a long time, and we know what happens next.
So when you left the army, I presume you were working, and so what happened? Were you always a good speaker? And B, what happened to get you to go from concentrating on your working life to being pulled to a movement? What happened there?
Yeah, I mean, I got married to a girl from Northern Ireland. That's why I live in Northern Ireland, and we've got children, grandchildren, so on and so forth. I just when I left the military, I just lived a normal life. I thought, what I've got to do is pay my mortgage, look after my family, do my best, work hard, and that's what I did. I left in 1992. So that's a long time ago. So I just had a normal working life in media advertising, and then when the attacks happened in the Ariana Grande attack and the Borough Market, and PC Keith Palmer, who was a veteran as well, when those atrocities happened, I saw, because I was on Facebook, and I was fairly active on Facebook, as most people were, post Brexit. I mean, Brexit, I think, woke a lot of us up. I saw, hi Kaz, I saw the hi Archer, I saw the all these people keep popping up, and I just keep saying hi to them. Okay, that's the last one. Hi Tom Lamb. I'm not saying hi to anybody else. But I saw what was happening with the Islamic terror. I realized we were in a very, very dangerous situation, and that this could very, very easily turn into a Northern Ireland type situation. And the government seemed weak. The government seemed completely paralyzed. I mean, some of the worst advice I heard, and I maintain this, and it was given by security people as well as by the government, so we can't just blame the government, but it beggars question of what the security people are at now, was run, hide and tell. And I thought that phrase, run, hide and tell, when a terrorist attack is taking place, is one of the most heinous and cowardly phrases I've ever heard. And when I first stood up on a platform in London in what was it, 2017, I said, no, you don't run, hide and tell. You stand, you fight, and you protect. Because if some maniac's running into a pub with a knife, like that guy did from Millwall, I'd like to think I'd do the same. I'd smash a glass and have a go at the guy, rather than just
let him go to the next person and stab them up. Yeah,
exactly. If you're going to die, you're going to die. I mean, everyone's going to die. So I mean, you're better standing on your feet, swinging at these guys or throwing anything you can at them, than just letting them get away with mass murder. And that I think it's dreadful that the government said that. And they seemed, actually, after we started saying that, even people who were trumpeting the run, hide and tell phrase said, well, actually, we're not sure about that. Maybe it would be better having a go at these people. And every time someone's had a go at the terrorists, they've actually disrupted the attacks. So
I thought that myself.
I'm going off on a
No, it's okay. Do you know what? Honestly, it's okay, because we're Joe Roganing it, So it's
Yeah,
fine. Well,
exactly.
wherever it takes us. But
Exactly. But that,
so
yeah. So that was kind of. But you asked about the speaking. There's a bit
yeah.
part of my life that again really has, I guess, put me in the position where I can speak confidently. In the mid '90s, I had a very, very deep religious experience. And again, whether you believe in God or not, I mean, it doesn't matter to me. I know what I saw and what I experienced,
Hmm.
and I've never been big into drugs, and I don't drink that much apart from the odd Coors Light in Carlsberg. But I had a vision of Christ being crucified when I was I was 28 years old, and that had a huge impact on me. And ever since then, I've believed the gospel. I believe that Jesus Christ is God, come in the flesh, and that had a huge impact on my life because it meant, one, I started speaking in churches. So you ask how I managed to learn how to speak.
Okay. Okay.
It literally came from speaking in gospel halls, and believe it or not, standing on street corners with a Bible, preaching on the street for 15 years.
Really?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah, yeah. So that's where so that was me. I was living this sort of very, very quiet life of I don't know what you'd say, just a normal life. And when I saw all this happening, I thought, we cannot just sit back and let this happen. And I think somebody once said to me, our movement's made up of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And I think that kind of sums everybody in the movement.
That's actually really, yeah, yeah.
It was Tommy that said that, actually. I mean, he's quoting someone else, but I thought it was a great quote for our movement. And I just had to get involved. I was compelled to get involved, and a couple of other veterans had set up Veterans Against Terrorism. I knew I had a skill set. I helped them out with web design, helped them out with the mission statement. I knew I could speak, and I didn't impose myself on them. I just said, "Look, guys, I'm here. I'm available. If you want me to speak, I can speak. If you want me to help you out in any way, I'll help." And that's basically how I got involved in the movement.
It's amazing though, because
Thanks,
for
Joe.
most of us, we can't just walk into a movement from not nothing, but you know what I mean?
From obscurity, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, but yeah. Put it that way. So that's pretty amazing. You just sort of went
yeah.
the
I mean,
moment.
I think what it was. I think I certainly believe in providence, and that if we all have a purpose in life, and to me, doing this is my purpose in life. Obviously rearing a family and working, has been my purpose in life and still is a purpose in life. But the reality is doing this, because I think the stakes are so high. Doing this is so important that I couldn't not do it. So even if it hadn't been with the veterans, I'd have probably just started, I don't know, got on a plane and flown to London and started shouting at people in the street saying you need to do something. But
Wait.
it was a great opportunity to do something so positive. And
Yeah.
I had a plan, you see. I mean, I've been thinking about these things for many years. I knew what Islam was in the 80s because of personal experience, because I've grown up, with a lot of Pakistani lads. And yeah, that's white night. There we go. There's nothing wrong with having a beer at all. So, I knew what Islam was all about. And then when I became a Christian, I realized if you take a text that's to do with a religion very, very seriously, that's going to impact your life, and it's going to make you act in a certain way. And I knew that the literally the solution to the problem of radical Islam is very, very complicated and very, very difficult, because when you've got a group of people that absolutely believe what is in that text, and if that text is telling them to do malevolent things. Now, what I keep saying, and this is really important, not everybody that calls themselves a Muslim is completely signed up to what is in the Quran. But the
It's
problem
like a
is,
rainbow, just like us on the other side.
yeah, it's like the video that I think's now been totally banned by YouTube, which is absolutely fantastic. We had the concentric circles of radicalization it was actually a Muslim lady put the thing out, and she goes into a lot of detail. But the reality is, if you totally believe that your text, the text of what you believe, is absolutely true, you will do your best to live by what you believe that text is saying. Now, in the case of the New Testament, it's saying, love your enemies, turn the other cheek, love God, love everybody else. That's pretty much the message in the New Testament boiled down into, it's not deep theology, but I mean, that gives you an idea of what Christianity should be about. Now, the problem
Islam is conquest.
Unfortunately, it is. I mean, that's the reality. That's the reality. I mean, there's some, the verses of the sword. People say, oh, well, the Old Testament's got a lot of, sort of spicy stuff in it. Well, what people don't realize is that to a great extent, the Old Testament is abrogated by the New Testament. In other words, replaced by the New Testament, or not replaced, let's say fulfilled by the New Testament. So all the spicy stuff about smiting and killing people in the Old Testament, there's no way that anybody that understands even the most basic form of Christianity can justify violence from the New Testament. It's impossible. It's impossible in my opinion, and I think most proper theologians would agree with me on that. Islam is completely the opposite. The verses of the sword abrogate or replace the more peaceful verses in the Quran, and that's a fact. And any Islamic theologian that's honest will admit to that.
It gets worse as it goes along, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, it's not in chronological order, but they have later verses and earlier verses in their theology, and hence the problem. And again, you look at Muhammad. Muhammad is meant to be the perfect man. We know he was.
That's the problem, isn't it? Is that it's the finished article? No, exactly. And you can't.
Exactly. We know that Muhammad had sex with a 9-year-old girl. We know that he raped his murdered captives' wives and raped and pillaged because he was a warlord. I mean,
do you think? And bear in mind, I'm not a religious person myself, and I used to actually have I used to be a bit of an anti-theist, but I've sobered that attitude somewhat because I wonder what you think about this. I've often thought if we'd kept belief in this country and it was still a Christian country, this Islamification couldn't happen because the church would be too strong and it would not be allowed. Do you think that whatever is happening to our civilization, and it's happened to many other civilizations, as they start to lose religion, a lot of things happen, but you create a hole for people because people seem to need something, and I think that's why Islam's now the fastest growing religion. But do you see that? Or
I 100% agree with that. I mean, the sort of loss of faith in the certainly in the church in England, and certainly the Church of England. I mean, I think most Church of England vicars are probably Marxist women now, and feminists. But someone once said that the Church of England's full of little old ladies of both sexes. So I mean, that's sad. I mean, but if you had a very strong and vibrant church, and if Christianity was still taken seriously, and there are some thoughtful people, there aren't believers that take Christianity seriously, and I always say to people, look, I'm not standing here with any virtue. I'm standing here as a very, very flawed and failed human being who I just believe. I'm not living by any means a life that is without spot or blemish. I'm not that person, but I just believe it. But the point is, if you've got a very strong and vibrant church with very strong beliefs in it, it is, and this has been the case in America until very recently. It is a bulwark against any other religion pushing its way in there, because the people in the church would straight away say, hold on a minute, what does that religion believe? And that debate can't even be had now in the UK. And it's very sad because I mean, Tommy was on a live stream with David Woods and one of the Christian girls from Speaker's Corner. So there still are some very strong Christians out there that are taking a stand on these issues. Let's say like David Woods, like the guys at Speaker's Corner, and others. But Tommy said when he went to the church and said, "Look, this is what we're doing. We need your help, we need your support," and he was more or less cast out by these, high Anglican.
Woke.
Yeah, I mean the woke church. I mean, this is what you've got. You've got a woke church that doesn't believe in the Bible, and that causes huge problems. So I think absolutely, if Christianity was strong in the UK and in Western Europe, we
Yeah.
wouldn't have had the situation where Islam is. Obviously, there's other things like immigration and so on and so forth, but all
Is
of this
there a
connected.
sorry?
No,
Sorry.
go on ahead.
I was just going to say, so Christianity isn't there, or not in the way that it needs to be. Islam is the fastest growing religion, and I'm uncomfortable with that. Um, is there
You
a
sure?
solution?
Well, there is. I mean, there are several solutions. There's political solutions. There are spiritual solutions, and there are social and cultural solutions, and they're all connected. We need to take our culture back. So we need a situation where we're proud of our culture. We're proud of what the UK has done. We all know that the UK has done some bad things, but it's done a hell of a lot of good things.
So many young people are being taught to hate this country.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, if this is the question for young people, whatever background they're coming from, but they've got to ask themselves this question: if the UK is such a horrible, racist, colonial country that's only done evil, why do so many people from the rest of the world want to come and live here? If it's such a
Absolutely, absolutely.
and
You know what, Richard? I honestly believe that we are maybe one of the most welcoming countries in the entire planet, and I think that it's perfectly reasonable for us to look. So even if we're not worried about skin color, the Nazis call us civnats, because we're worried about culture. And my concern is that with this constant immigration that don't seem to be doing much about, that we are overpopulated, and my worry is that it's going to be almost impossible to assimilate that culture into ours without breaking our own. And my worry here, and this is why I get angry with people hating on the country and not reading history, is because there's 1,000 years of blood spill for us to have the peace that we have here now. And if other cultures come and replace this one, we go back to square one, don't we?
it could even be worse than that. I mean, there's all sorts of nightmares. I mean, and that's why. Let's be honest, Tom. That's why we're doing what we're doing. I would rather just go swimming every day in the sea, and
Yeah,
have
me too. Yeah, yeah.
a nice, quiet life. And
I never
I
wanted
really
this.
would. I mean, I don't. I enjoy doing this because I know we're doing something valid and something good. But if somebody else would come along with a fantastic idea and loads of support that could fix this, then I would go, okay, I'll just take it easy, because
Yeah,
believe you me, there's a price to pay when you do this.
absolutely.
All in all sorts of ways. I mean, your employment choices. Once you've put your head above the parapet in this movement, your employment choices get very, very narrow. Once the first time you open a national newspaper and find your name in there as Richard Inman, anti-Islam bigot.
When you were
Kind
in the
of narrows
paper,
down the employment choices you've got. When not every media company in the country is going to necessarily want to employ you anymore.
was it how many words in the article about you were true, other than your name?
Well, I am anti-Islam. I'm just not a bigot, I don't think. So they got that bit right. They got the fact that I was a veteran right. I mean, yeah, there's been a few different articles, and obviously Hope Not Hate pump bilge out all the time, trying to discredit us and slander us and so on and so forth. But again, that comes with the territory. But the problem with that is, if you're going to get a job now, not I mean, at the end of the day, you do what you can do. But the reality is, if I went to get another job somewhere, it would be very difficult for me to get in with a normal employer, even though I've got a completely clean criminal record. I've got
Same here. Yeah,
got a completely clean employment record. But if I went for another job, all they've got to do is Google my name, and you're going to have YouTube videos, you're going to have newspaper articles, and that's part of the price. There's loads of other sacrifices you've got to make, but to me, what we're doing is so important that we've got to keep at this, and we've got to keep the momentum. We've got to keep the momentum going. And I think we've got solutions as well, Tom. I think we've got, you're asking what happens. I mean, the worst, there's the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is that we completely submit to Islamic extremists, or we completely submit to far left extremists, or we completely submit to far right extremists. Either one of those scenarios leads to massive bloodshed, the destruction of the United Kingdom, and
I agree.
Potentially a civil war. So what we've got to do is say, what can we do in our small way, but what ideas can we put out there? Because I look at people, like Douglas Murray and some of these.
I was just glad you brought him up. I was just about to bring him up. Go on.
Yeah, and I look at, and I've met Douglas Murray. I met him in Belfast, several years ago. He was doing a book launch. I spoke to him for a couple of seconds, but he's a really nice guy. He's very, very intelligent, very articulate. But the problem is with people like Douglas Murray and Peter Hitchens, all they say is, "We're screwed. There's nothing can be done. We're finished."
Peter Hitchens is very much like, get out the country, it's done. And Douglas Murray is very much like, I'm watching the sunset on our civilization.
And that's okay if you want, if you want to sit in your nice sort of Chelsea flat, sipping your G&T and watching London burn. I don't want to do that. I think we can solve this, and I think we can win it. I
think those people, I think Douglas Murray and Peter Hitchens, I think really that they do want it sorted, which is why they've written books and everything else about it.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
How can we get right? I think part of the problem, especially because they're upper class and all the rest of it, I think part of the problem is they don't want to take the risk of getting involved with a thug group, a group that's to them whatever. But with speakers like you, surely we can get through to at least one of them. Whether we write to them, whether we speak to them, whether we send videos to them, surely there must be a way to get through to them, because we need things like money, intellectuals, speakers, as we were talking about earlier on, technical people. We need people across the board, like the left has.
I guess, I mean, we need to back things up, and we need to look at where we were at. I'm not, I'm generally not boasting about this, but the tie-up with UKIP, and tying the veterans and the football lads and UKIP together was my idea. And I'll tell you why I came up with that idea. Because I looked at what was the potential for the veterans, the football lads, if they remained just a street movement without being involved in the political realm. And I thought, I don't want these guys, and obviously not all of them, but I don't want any of these guys doing anything that will jeopardize their liberty or their lives, right? Because people were so angry that people could react in a certain way. And I thought, well, that's not a good idea. So what I tried to do was just influence people and suggest, well, why don't we look at politics? Why don't we look at a tie-up with a political party? And we spoke to Anne-Marie Waters, and For Britain was just a little baby party then. It had literally only been formed a couple of months. But also at the same time as I was reaching out to UKIP, Gerard Batten, who was then the deputy leader, was reaching out and trying to find out who we were. So I brokered a meeting with myself and the then leader of as it was the FLA, John Meehan, and we met Gerard in Birmingham, and we had a great lunch meeting. And of course, Gerard paid, which was fantastic. And that was all. I think that was all paid for. I think that was all paid for by the European Union, which was great. So
got something out of them at last.
Absolutely, and then we managed to kind of let's just say dispense with Henry Bolton, who was the then leader of UKIP.
Dispense.
Yeah, once horrible Henry was gone, Gerard then became leader, and Gerard totally embraced what we were doing. We had an open tie-up with the veterans and UKIP and the DFLA, as it was then changed it to DFLA. They came on board as well. We went to the House of Lords. We met all the UKIP grandees, all the different lords, and everything was looking really, really good. And then things just started fraying a little bit, and I'm convinced that the establishment looked at a street movement that had literally, one of our demos we had, well, actually it was the football lads. It wasn't us. The football lads had 70,000 people there, and we were just basically, we were the honor guard. It was the veterans were, you know, we're all standing there with our medals and got such a welcome from the football lads. And
that's cool.
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, you know, the football lads were so good to the veterans. I mean, it was, you know, they just honored us so much. It was fantastic. So we kind of joined everything together, UKIP, the DFLA, the veterans, and I'm convinced that the establishment deliberately derailed that, and I'm convinced that people in UKIP deliberately derailed that, and there were probably people within our movements that were also working to destabilize that plan. And of course, Tommy came on board as well with UKIP. I'd spoken to Tommy about UKIP for about 6 months, and he was, yeah, great idea. Let's do it. And I think once Tommy got involved,
so you got Tommy involved in UKIP.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't realise that.
Well, I kind of suggested it to him for about 6 months, and then he finally met up with Gerard Batten and Lord Pearson and so on and so forth.
Right.
So it was, but it was the right thing to do, because the reality is that the only way that we can do this is by having a political voice. And we had it. I mean, it was, but there's no point in looking and crying over spilt milk. What we've got to do is look at where we're at now, what's happening politically, and what we can do next, and how we can literally flip this. That seems like a very, I suppose, dark period where we've got the left seem to be in the ascendancy. They've really, got the wind behind the sails. They think they've pulled this thing off with so-called Black Lives Matter, because I mean, I think we'll talk about that in a minute. But we can still get the advantage if we work things right. So we've just got to think about how to do it and how to play the chess game.
I feel actually, so go back a few months, maybe a bit more, I started to feel a little bit hopeless, because the far right were having an impact on, at least on the internet, and people seem to be fracturing in all kinds of ways. And I'll be honest with you, my hope was, but I will say, through drama, through all the things that have happened, I feel like it's pushed the best of us closer together. And I actually feel like maybe we've come out of this stronger, knowing who's who. And maybe going forward, this will be a good thing,
Absolutely agree. Totally agree. I totally agree. And I think, the Black Lives Matter thing has blown up, obviously.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. No, go on, Tom. Go on ahead.
I was going to show you something from Black Lives Matter. I can't show you the one. I can't show you one from yesterday, because that'll probably get me banned again.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So I'll show you Black Lives Matter celebrating Independence Day in America.
So fuck Trump, fuck that law, fuck your fucking Independence Day. We need a revolution in order to overthrow this system, bring a whole new communist world into being that can actually ensure the rights of black and brown people. And whether or not you fucking agree, or if you still are caught up in this electoral politics bullshit, even if you are, even your hopes for a more progressive or liberal agenda are not going to happen while the second president of the Confederacy is in the White House. Let's work together to tear that fucking statue down.
Revolution, nothing less.
So, where can I reach out to you at?
So you can catch us at the RevComs.
So communism and revolution, surely they've just really openly admitted now that they're not Black Lives Matter, they are Antifa, or whatever you want to call them.
If we look at the whole thing, the Black Lives Matter movement is very, very clever. It's a very clever marketing ploy.
Especially the names.
The name, I'm one of the few people that will openly say, I don't like the name Black Lives Matter. But I also don't like the name White Lives Matter. And I'll tell you why I don't like either of those names. Because both of those names are completely divisive. And
instantly divisive.
it is doing, you know, I believe Martin Luther King Jr. would be spinning in his grave if he knew what was happening in the name of black civil rights in America,
I agree.
also in the United Kingdom. And
Yeah.
the reality is that using divisive names is a deliberate policy by these communists, cultural Marxists, who want to. And the disgusting thing is that they're doing exactly the opposite of what they claim to be doing, because when they're saying they're anti-racist, they are stoking up more racism on both sides. I mean, even the fact that we're now talking about size, I mean, you have spoken about this, Tom. I do not care what color your skin is. If you're lucky enough to have a darker skin pigmentation, well done, because it means you ain't going to get skin cancer. That's the only thing I think. I don't think there's a black man. Oh my goodness. I
Do you know what?
But the problem is,
sorry,
people are going to start thinking like that. White people are going to start thinking like that, because and the media. I'm incensed about this. I'm so angry about this, because I've got lots of black friends who detest this. They absolutely detest it. You never see them on the media. You never hear them. Who do you hear? You hear Kahindi Andrews, the archbishop, the archbigot of Birmingham University. Professor of Black Studies, Kahindi Andrews, who said that whiteness is a psychosis. You've got that woman in Cambridge University who's saying, what did she say? That she wanted to stab white people or something like that. I can't remember what it was. Some crazy comment. So we've got all this nonsense going on, and it's insidious. And of course, the white supremacists are loving this because it feeds into their narrative as well.
Oh, absolutely! It's playing straight into their hands.
Exactly. So what we've done, Tom, and we did it on our channel. On my channel a couple of weeks ago, where we had Sean and Danny, and Sean was very open that he'd been to Black Lives Matter's demos in 2016, and he's an open-minded guy, so he's not in a situation where he's saying, oh yeah, I totally agree with everything they're doing. He's an open-minded guy, and I think what we've got to do is really start to reach out to our black friends.
See, Sean is the almost like the traditional left, in as much as he has his ideology, but he's reasonable. He's not like the far left, where they're completely emotional, reasonable. And I suppose what we've got to remember is the loudest voices don't represent the majorities, and we've got to remember this.
Exactly.
So that we can keep reaching out to other people. I honestly think, I don't know what you think, I think that Black Lives Matter, especially now we've seen videos like that with the communism and stuff like that, I think that they can't be reasoned with. They want to smash everything up. That's what they want. I think that we need to create something that makes them irrelevant. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I saw on Facebook one of the lads that was that was involved in the football lads back in the early days. He's got a group going up in Birmingham, and basically he's a black lad himself, black and white lads standing together behind a Union Jack saying, do you know something, you can stuff your racism because we're together, black and white united. Tommy's doing a black and white unite thing. We're doing a demo on the 1st of August.
Yeah,
it's about grooming, but what's the subtitle? Black and white unite. And that's not a marketing ploy, that's genuine, because
and we're all going to take a knee, aren't we?
Well, yeah, yeah. I'll only take a knee if I've had about 15 pints of lager, and then no. I mean, taking a knee is it's an obscenity. It's so
bad.
And actually, if you remember when we're on the live stream, and again, just when I was talking to Sean was trying to explain about the taking knee. I says, look, mate, I tell you what, let's flip it. I'm a white man. I'm asking you to get down on one knee for me. What are you going to say? And he said, fair point. Yeah. You know, I mean, because again, Sean's an open-minded guy. So I wouldn't ask a black man to get down on a knee to me. And to see those guys basically commanding police officers in London to get down on one knee, and they did it. wasn't. At the end of the day, those guys were probably having a laugh, not expecting them to do it. Those police officers did it, and their commanding
couldn't
officers
believe it.
allowed them to do it. It's pathetic. It's
Did
absolutely.
they allow them to do it, or did they tell them to do it?
Well, who knows? I don't know. I mean, I've a video that looks like it's all orchestrated. Pathetic.
See, only thing I will say, because it's incensed me. It's absolutely incensed me. It's not even respect being showed. It's total submission. And yeah, and the only thing I will say is that in recent days, more and more people on these, whether it's football or whatever else, are openly not joining in. And more you're seeing this now. And I think people are starting to say, no, I'm not being bullied into, because they're being bullied into it, aren't they? So, and a lot of people are, I'm not being bullied into it, but they're scared because it's like you say, very clever, because if you don't do it, it's like you're saying Black lives don't matter. That's instantly what is taken from it. It's very clever.
Exactly. When I say I don't like the phrase Black Lives Matter, that's what I will get thrown at me. But I've got to say it because it's what I believe. Because I'm not saying Black lives don't matter. I'm saying I don't like the phrase Black. Every life.
You're saying, aren't you really saying any color on there is the wrong thing to say?
Yeah, it's all lives matter. At the end of the day, skin pigmentation and that's so minor is not an important factor in my life. I don't care. I just to me, what matters is what you are culturally. Do you believe in the United Kingdom? That flag that
it is the culture.
The Union flag. What I would love to see is Black people, white people, Asian people, all rallying behind the Union Jack and saying, do you know something? We differ culturally on a lot of different things, but we love this nation. We love this country. The United Kingdom's a great country. And that's what Ricky Doolan's doing with the I Am British, not the I Am British thing, British Lives Matter. He's saying, let's get behind the Union flag, and he's in a black church. He's the only white man in a black church, and he's got this great movement called British Lives Matter. Tommy's doing it with the Black and White United. I've got other friends that are doing it, and again, we're not going to talk about that yet because they're doing it under, almost in a very, very gentle and slow way, where they're going to Black friends at the football, Black friends that they've grown up with, and saying, guys, this is wrong, and because I think what it is I don't know, our movement. A lot of people. You
broke up then. Sorry, can you say that again, please?
Yeah. When we started our movement, a lot of people were not politically aware. So it took a long time for those of us, I'm not boasting, but I've looked at this stuff for many, many years. For those of us that were politically aware, to kind of wake people up to the dangers that we were facing. And that's a slow process. So, and that's kind of, I think that's kind of what's happening to a large extent.
I need waking up. I needed to wake up.
Yeah, we all did. Even though I knew all this, it was a question of getting involved in actually doing something about it. So yeah,
you say as well. You as soon as you do this, your head's on the chopping block. I mean, it's a very real thing.
If you look what's happened to David Starkey, oh
my God,
he's
the most British Briton that there is.
Exactly. If he didn't come up he didn't come up with a silver spoon in his mouth. He worked hard. He's a great intellect. Now, David Starkey.
He's also he's gay as well, isn't he?
He is gay. Yeah. He said one phrase that offended. That was enough to sink his career. That one word, damn. If he'd have said everything else and just said Black people wouldn't be here if it wasn't for slavery, nobody would have said they wouldn't have been. But that one word has basically wrecked, a career that spanned. Well, I mean, he's been on the scene as long as I can remember. I mean, he's certainly been doing TV appearances since the 80s and 90s.
He's an inspiration. I noticed that. Carl Benjamin and myself both take a lot from him, and he's an amazing guy. I'm absolutely gutted over all this.
But it happened with Roger Scruton.
Do you think this is why Douglas Murray and that are frightened to get involved?
Well, I think Douglas Murray does get involved in his own, in his own way, and obviously he's written books. That he spent a lot more time doing this than we have. And again, people like Douglas Murray were always an inspiration to me, because I was looking at them and saying, well, I should actually, if this very quietly spoken gay guy from London can actually stand up and talk about these things, then without being scared, then surely an ex-soldier who isn't scared of anyone should be able to stand up and do the same. And that was always a challenge to me. So I think what happens is, when you put your head above the parapet, yes, it might well get shut off, but you're inspiring other people to get involved as well. And the more people, I don't think you have a situation where you get loads of people that are just, or a few people that are just kind of running the show. We need 10,000 Tommies and Toms and
Rich, absolutely,
and Katie's, and we need thousands of people standing up and basically speaking out and becoming involved in activism, and that's when we're gonna
we really do. We can't just have, say, 5 figureheads. They're all going to be taken out.
Exactly. Whereas you've got 5,000 people who can speak articulately and can react in their own communities and go at a local level and talk to family members and do stuff on Facebook and do stuff on all the different social media platforms. That's the way we've got to do it on a very wide scale. So it's not just a few people; it's lots of people saying exactly the same thing at exactly the same time.
It's difficult, because as we were talking about before we came online earlier on, is that we want to get this message out, and we know that the mainstream only really goes to YouTube. But in getting our message out, a bit like yesterday, and I told you about that video, that I told everybody on here about the video that got taken down. Try to tell the truth, but you're in danger on here of getting kicked off doing it. So it's, how do you get this message out? Because yes, some people, some really dedicated people will follow you to other platforms, but the majority won't. If you look at a lot of people who have been, say, kicked off YouTube now, look at their followings now compared to what they were. How do we get around this? What do we do?
It's a very difficult, very, very difficult situation. And again, it's almost like there's a class divide. I mean, you don't see the elite spokespeople, the people that have got, plummy Etonian accents and a degree from Cambridge or Oxford, getting booted off platforms. Not that often. Kazza just mentioned Piers
Morgan. Piers Morgan. Do you want to have...
Anyway, good news about Piers Morgan. Breaking news. A very, very good source. A little bird told me earlier on that Piers Morgan is quitting Good Morning Britain. I don't know. Hopefully it's permanently. I'm very proud to say that I did start the Send Piers packing campaign. So maybe the Send Piers packing campaign with all 3 people.
It's brilliant. I know he's your pet hate, isn't he?
Piers Morgan. He's my Clouseau. He drives me absolutely insane. I come downstairs in the morning and Piers Morgan's on. It wakes me up, for it that way. It gets the adrenaline going immediately. But Piers has been sent packing, hopefully permanently. Hopefully.
Wow.
My worry is that Piers will end up leading the Labour Party. And
don't say that.
Oh, listen, I'm telling you, just listen to the way he's talking. I mean, he basically told the government what to do right the way through the coronavirus, and they did everything he told them. And that's probably why we're going to be in the horrendous situation we're in. But anyway, that's another story. Don't mention Piers Morgan, whatever you do, Tom. Too late. Piers Morgan.
Right. Okay. I will not mention Piers Morgan. What do you think of Piers Morgan?
How long have you got?
How long have you been like?
Will he drag you through defamation? Through the libel courts as well as me if I say what I really think of Piers Morgan.
Hey, all he'll do is make me famous. So, how long have you felt like this about him?
That's a very strange question to ask.
It is a strange question, but I'm curious. I want to know how long this. I want to know if you've got drawings on the wall and stuff.
With Piers Morgan. I think it started. I think it started at the turn of the year. I didn't like him because of the thing he did with the British soldiers in Iraq, where he published those fake photographs. I didn't like him because he was editor of newspapers that were heavily involved in phone hacking. There were several. I didn't like the way he tried to change the American Constitution and really thought he could get away with trying to take guns off the American people.
Yeah, I didn't. I saw that. I didn't like that.
I didn't like the way he treated Tommy when Tommy was on. When Tommy made mincemeat of him, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
I think Pierce had to go to the bathroom straight after that interview to check his underwear to see he hadn't soiled himself.
Absolutely.
He got very nervous when Tommy was waving a Quran above his head.
Oh my God, didn't he?
This is a cursed book, you know. The color drained from his cheeks, you know.
He totally yeah.
You know. So I've no time for Piers Morgan. I think he's extremely dangerous. You know, on the serious side of it, I mean, you know, people like Piers Morgan are part of the problem. And he, you know, not just him, but you know, you could name a whole swathe of them. You know, Peston, Kunzberg, that dreadful woman that does Sky. I can't remember her name. But all of those people, they, especially with this recent controversy over George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter, they have stoked the fires. They have deliberately stoked the fires of division in this country, and they should never ever be forgiven for that, because it's only by providence that there wasn't somebody murdered at that demonstration a couple of weeks ago, where literally the tensions were boiled to such a point that you had, you know, roaming gangs literally hunting people down purely and simply because of their skin color and beating them. Now, that should not be happening in 21st century UK, and it's happened purely because the media have stoked that up and allowed it to happen. And I think these people need to be caught to account for that, and they need to be taken to task. And the guests that they have on the shows, I mean, they have some shocking guests on the show.
Yeah.
That
can I make a strange segue and ask you something? Partly because I've noticed it in the comments here, but it's an ongoing thing. So people will react sometimes quite badly when I call myself British. And the way, and for all those people that have that issue with me, the way that I see myself is English first and British second, because I'm an Englishman living in Britain. I don't see what the problem is with that, but it seems to me at the moment there's a lot of people that want to just to be English, and I don't know where you stand, but I'm a fan of the union. I think it's a lot of blood's been spilt, a lot of everything. You know, so much history has gone into this. I'm not a fan of breaking it up, but it seems to me that a lot of people want to keep talking about being English and not British, and I feel like I'm both. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I totally agree, Tom. And this, I mean, obviously, living in Northern Ireland, you know, I'm acutely aware of the divisive nature of nationalism. I believe in the whole union of the United Kingdom. I would never want to see any part of the United Kingdom leave. I wouldn't want to see Scotland leave. I wouldn't want to see Northern Ireland leave. I wouldn't want to see Wales leave. And obviously, I'm an Englishman, and I'm British, and again, I'm English first because that's where I was born and that's where I was brought up. You know, when England play rugby or football or whatever the sport we excel in at the time, I love it. I mean, I love watching the England football team. I love watching the England rugby team. I'm not a great sport fan, but just when I see my country represented,
but same,
I get excited. But the reality is, this union of the United Kingdom, and again, warts and all, there's been plenty of bloodshed. There's been plenty of dreadful things happened in the UK in the past 1,000 years since the Norman Conquest. And before, I mean, we've been a state of flux on many occasions. But the union of the United Kingdom and of Great Britain and Northern Ireland is the most successful union in world history in terms of cohesion and and what we've achieved as a nation. And if we suddenly decide we want to break up the union as Englishmen, that is huge folly. If we want to break up the union as Scotsmen, that's huge folly. And the same as a United Irishman. You know, it's almost bordering on insanity. It's almost bordering on masochism. What we have at the minute is not perfect, but it works. And until very recently, it wasn't an issue. And one of the worst things that happened under the Blair government was putting these local assemblies in place and then putting them on steroids, as Cameron did after the Scottish independence referendum. I watched Jim Davis. I've started watching Jim Davis on YouTube, and I tell you what, he is a character, and he calls Nicola Sturgeon Fandabidozi. I call her Widow Cranky. She reminds me of Crankies out of Crackerjack, and she is a very, very dangerous woman. And the SNP is an extremist party. It is
I agree. Yeah,
English baiting extremist party, and we don't need that in England. We don't need a party that is just England for the English. No.
What I don't understand about the SNP is they're a nationalist party that wants out of England, but then they're prepared to go jumping straight into Europe. That doesn't make sense to me.
Well, the Sinn Féin IRA are exactly the same in Northern Ireland, as are the SDLP, and I think the Alliance Party are the same. They would quite happily smash the UK to have it swallowed up by an unelected, undemocratic foreign power.
Wow.
That makes no sense whatsoever.
No.
They are not, and this is the thing that Irish nationalists and Scottish nationalists have got to understand, that the SNP are not true nationalists, because they don't want independence. They want to be free from England because of their pathological hatred of the English. And that's what this comes down to. I'm not talking about all Scottish people by any means.
No.
Because as we know, that every time they've had a referendum, they voted to remain. So again, the silent majority in Scotland, even though they've got this vile SNP government, who are just, I mean, they're getting there with Pol Pot. I mean, they're crazy. The laws that they're trying to pass in Scotland at the minute that would stifle freedom of speech.
Oh my God, they are frightening, and they, so many people are saying they'll be coming to England if they do it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is the whole thing. So what you're going to end up if Scotland leaves the UK and if Northern Ireland leaves the UK, well, England's going to become a whole lot more crowded, because I, for one, ain't going to live in a united Ireland, and there's plenty of people.
Oh God, yeah,
aren't going to live in a Scotland that's swallowed up by the European Union, and they have managed to whip up this nationalistic fervour. And as Englishmen, it would actually be unpatriotic to do the same, because do you think England's going to do really well without its brothers and sisters in Northern Ireland and in Scotland?
No, of course it's not. Don't.
Of course it's not. And it would just lead to.
We've had this arrangement for years.
And what this is, Tom, this is identity politics. It's exactly the same as what the left are trying to do. And the left are behind this. Sinn Féin IRA are a far left Marxist organisation. The SNP, exactly the same. And
I never realised that about Sinn Féin. I had no idea.
Man, yeah, they're a Marxist organisation to the core, using cultural Marxism. In fact, they said, Gerry Adams very, very famously said years ago that they would use the equality laws to break the bastards. And when he said that, he was talking about the unionist people. That's exactly what he was talking about. And what's happened in Northern Ireland again is shocking. So the union is in jeopardy. But what we don't need is Englishmen rising up and saying, well, I tell you what, we want our own parliament as well. No.
That's happened, and that's unfortunately happening.
The patriotic thing to do, and it's exactly the same with the race thing, the patriotic thing to do is to work together with people from Northern Ireland and Scotland, unionists who love the United Kingdom, from Northern Ireland and Scotland. We need the English people now in Northern Ireland.
And in fairness to Scotland and whatever else, we also, our government also needs to start treating them with a little bit more, don't don't know what the word is. Need to be a little bit more present. I feel at times.
Well,
I'm not.
I think what Scotland needs is a very, very strong unionist party, because
Yes.
Ruth Davison up in the Scottish Conservatives. I mean, to me, she's just another liberal Democrat, with a Tory. And there isn't a strong unionist party. So I think what the Scottish need, sadly, I mean, it's a shame, because you shouldn't have to go down the road of identity politics, but they need a movement that is saying, we want Scotland to stay in the United Kingdom under any circumstances. Northern Ireland, we need the unionists need to be stronger in Northern Ireland as well, but we can only do it if we all work together. If we're in a situation where the English suddenly say, something, we don't want Scotland anyway, we don't want Northern Ireland, then it would be a very, very dark day for a union that's been together for 300 years or something, and has been hugely successful, and has had this great empire, which of course is now the root of all evil, according to
thing is, it was an empire in an age of empires. So if you didn't have one, then you were subjugated. So one
of the questions I would ask people that only see evil in the British Empire: would Christianity have spread to the parts of the globe that it spread to if it wasn't for the British Empire? Would good education systems have spread to the rest of the globe?
Parliaments,
democracy, the rule of law, fair play, infrastructure, and we could go on and on.
On and on. Yeah, absolutely.
The life expectancy of an Indian, I think, doubled after the British Empire took control of India. Because when I was in West Africa, I spent quite a bit of time in West Africa, and I used to talk to the local people, that the elderly guys that had been around when the empire was still in control of a lot of those countries. And I would just say, this is just purely anecdotal evidence. I can't say that this is scientific, but these guys would say to me, do you know something? Things were actually better when the British were in control of our country. Now, it's anecdotal. I'm not saying everybody believed that.
No.
But certainly the people I spoke to said we had peace, we had stability, and a lot of these countries descended into chaos when the British left. They weren't in chaos when the British were there. So
that's a bit like what happened to places up when the Roman Empire left. Exactly. Almost exactly the same.
Exactly the same. So that, I'm not saying that's perfectly right and that's the whole story, but it's part of the story that's never been told. Because you think if you just listen to the leftist historians and the commentators, you think all we ever did was go around and rape, pillage, murder, and take slaves.
Yeah.
Where in fact, quite the opposite is true. Once Britain suddenly decided that slavery was a bad idea, which took them long enough, and they should have done it a lot quicker. But once they decided it was a bad idea, after Wilberforce managed to literally run a one-man crusade to get rid of slavery, once slavery was abolished, the Royal Navy literally sailed the seven seas and freed slaves, closed down slave markets, and rescued slaves.
I don't think people quite really understand, because we've been cut off from it's almost like a Chinese cut off of the past, but we were the center of the world, and you've only got if you go and read say War of the Worlds, it's a good example. The way that it describes life, we're the center of the world. Exactly. And so there was a lot of things that were ticking to our clock, and I mean that in a good way. And there was a lot of good things as well. Back then, it was a different time, and you have to judge things by the standards of the time. Back then, you had to take something if you wanted it. It was different, and we shouldn't be judging it by the standards of our time. It doesn't make any sense at all. And the thing is with the statues and that, even the ones with the slavery and that, nobody put those statues up to celebrate slavery. And if someone has been responsible for slavery, all the better to leave it there as a reminder to people to never do it again.
Exactly. You see, it's not, and as you know, Tom, it's not just about slavery. It's about what they want to do is they want to destabilize the country. So they knew, and the media knew this as well, that once those images are flashed around the world of somebody trying to light a Union Jack with a lighter at the cenotaph,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and vandalizing the statue of Churchill and spraying racist on him, on the statue of Britain's greatest man, who was voted by the whole population of the United Kingdom to be Britain's greatest man about 10 years ago when they did a big, massive poll on the whole thing. To do that, they knew exactly what they were doing, and they knew, and the police, the Metropolitan Police, allowed them to do it, and the media allowed them a platform to explain why it was a good idea to do that. And then they wonder why working class British people get upset about that. And then when the working class British people, the football lads and the veterans, turn up to defend the monuments, they're castigated and demonized as far right thugs and bully boys. And this is the battle that we're fighting. So we've got to realize we're not on a level playing field, and we're fighting against people who despise their own country. And back, when I was young, that used to be called treason, and it used to have the death penalty, but that was when Britain was a great country.
Oh yeah, a long time ago. I watched something on Sky News the other day, and they were grilling. I can't remember which guy it was from the government now. I forget his name. I'm not very good with the names, but they were grilling them, and they were grilling them hard. And then they got to the COVID thing, and they were talking about Leicester, and the guy from the government just slipped in that they might introduce new laws again to keep people locked in Leicester. And they said, how are you going to enforce this? You've had parties, and they named places all in London where there had been street parties. They said the Bournemouth Beach, Brighton Beach. They mentioned every gathering except one. And it's just unbelievable. There's no way that was forgotten from that list. It was, and it sounds like a little thing, but it's just so, By the way, sorry, go on.
No, it's totally deliberate, Tom. It's totally deliberate. It's not, they're doing this deliberately, and the other thing that people have got to realize is that even the newsreaders, we blame the newsreaders, but the newsreaders are doing what they're told by producers. So something's happening in mainstream media where the producers and editors are so far left, they're only sympathetic to people that have far left views or views that are detrimental to the mainstream United Kingdom. And when they have somebody that has our point of view on, they will make sure that they will do their best to discredit them, demonize them, and make them look stupid. And that's why I believe that's why they stopped having Tommy on the TV shows, because Tommy would run rings around them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
they didn't know what to do with him, So yeah, I mean, it's a deliberate policy. And again, I think we need to defund the BBC. We need to have.
See, thing is, sorry, please carry on. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, the thing is, Sky News. It was bought out. I think that went through. It was bought out by a company and based on something I told you earlier on about my old times with films. Hollywood got a powerful place, and if you look at the companies that bought Sky News, they are film companies, Hollywood companies. And then if you trace that back even more, those companies are owned by Disney. And Disney couldn't be more far left.
Yep.
So they own our news. Or they own Sky News.
And maybe when we're talking about defunding the BBC, maybe that's the wrong idea. Maybe we should turn around and say, no, we don't defund the BBC. And I think it's probably going to happen. So it's probably a bit late to make the argument for doing anything else. But maybe we should completely reform the BBC and sack people root and branch, and make it legally, because it's a government body, make it legally bound that they have to have a fair representation of the views of the British people. You know, in the same way that they're so interested in diversity. The only group that they're not interested in is the mainstream British population. They're interested in every other group that they can lay their hands on, except
Yeah,
mainstream culturally British people. So
I,
you know, legislation passed that means that the higher echelons of the BBC cannot just be far left Guardian reading, you know, nut jobs. That we can actually have some sensible people. We can have Douglas Murray in there. We can have people from commerce and business in there who are actually, and the same with the police. Because what needs to happen, the establishment, we need to take a sledgehammer to the establishment, you know, and we need to smash it into a million pieces, and then rebuild.
I honestly think we need a I honestly believe we need a powerful centre to right wing media. I really do. But I don't see it happening. I've left that question on screen for you, by the way.
For July demos. They weren't going to happen, but I think things are afoot now. That after what the IRA had a massive funeral in West Belfast and broke all the social distancing rules, and the Deputy First Minister seemed to break all the social distancing rules as well, even though she said she didn't. And I think after they did that, all bets are off, and I'm sure there will be some sort of maybe unofficial celebrations. I genuinely don't know. I haven't been following it that much because I've been busy doing live feeds and swimming. So
something I talked to you about. I'm jealous of the swimming. Something I was talking to you about off air, and I want to say to everyone that I could hear Richard's surprise at the question. So I want to do a bit of myth busting. You and Danny Tomo. There's the rumor that goes around between people on the internet is that during the time when you and Danny were fronting the movement, that you and Danny were butting heads or at odds with each other all the time.
No, not at all, not at all. I mean, it couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, you have differences of opinion on things, but no, I mean, like, you know, I mean, when we did the demos, you know, we knew exactly what we were doing. We knew exactly what we wanted to achieve, and you know, the whole of Tommy's team knew exactly what we were doing as well, and we were all working together. And obviously, Tommy was locked up, and we were, you know, really doing, you know, it's almost like his last will and testament before he went into
yeah.
He said,
yeah.
do demos, make some noise, you know, have a bit of a laugh, you know, do your best to get noticed, and we did it, you know, and we had some great demos, and you know, I think
did you other than Tommy going in, which was obviously hard for people, did you enjoy those demos?
Oh, massively, yeah. I mean, you know, they were really well organized. I mean, the police were very, very unhelpful on one of the demonstrations, and things got a bit boisterous there, and you know, the police totally mishandled it. I mean, they basically were very disingenuous. They misled us, and then they published information that I was led to believe wouldn't be published, and of course that meant the left basically got wind of where we were going to be at, and
yeah.
I think the left regretted that. That was before they'd basically morphed into something a little bit more robust. But one of the policemen came up to me and says, "We really need to get these young students out of here. They're a little bit scared." You know, I was saying, well, why have they got masks on, and why are they carrying batons then if they're so scared? You know, they should be scared, considering what they've tried to do here and what they're saying to patriotic people, you know. So yeah. Anyway, it was the demos were great. They were great crack, and nobody got killed, so it was good fun.
That's always a bonus, isn't it?
And listen, me and Dan, you know, I was chatting to Danny earlier on today on Facebook. You know, I mean, Danny's a great lad, and he's. I
really like him. I've only spoke to him a couple of times, but
he put his heart and soul into the movement. I mean, you know, he's got other stuff he's dealing with now, but he put his heart and soul into the movement, and yeah, I had a lot of time for the lad.
Shout out to Danny. You know your Men of England speech? Almost famous amongst us. Did you write that or did you just do it?
I can't remember. I mean, what
Do
happens?
you write any of them?
Yes, I do. I do. What I do is I'll have ideas, and I'll kind of work through the ideas. And if I'm driving, I mean, this is going to sound completely insane. If I'm driving in the car, I'll actually practice the speech in the car.
Okay.
Just so I can hear what it sounds like, because you can write something out, and then when you go to read it, it sounds really crap. But
Yeah.
if you actually speak it out, at the same sort of volume, and the only place you can do it without seeming like an absolute nut job is in the car. And even in the car, you probably look at it. I would have done that if I was driving to work. I'd be just practicing speeches and thinking about what I was going to say. And again, I think there's a responsibility with speech. I mean, there's a couple of things. First of all, there's a line that if you go across, I mean, I've made a lot of speeches in the past three years, and I know the police have looked at some of those speeches to see if there's anything that could be deemed to be hate speech. So you've got to be aware of what you're saying, but as well, you've got a responsibility, because we're not trying to incite violence. What we're trying to do is stir people's passions, to get them to do something positive, to get them to get involved in politics, to get them voting, to get them involved in the education system, to get people involved in doing things that can make change, and getting people on the streets and showing the state that the working class people of the UK are not just going to roll over and run away and hide under a rock like they want us to. That we are going to stand up, and we will. If things did get out of hand, we would stand up together and stand for our country. But that's the intention, is not to incite people to do anything dangerous or violent that's going to get them in trouble. It's the opposite. It's to say, you've got a voice here. We're your voice. We're going to speak. We're going to speak on your behalf, and we're going to do everything that we can to make a difference. But we need your help. So we need people to come on board and get involved in the political process. And
people have said to me that they don't feel they can articulate well, and they feel like they've literally said they feel like that we're speaking for them.
They say to me, yeah, and that's a great privilege, but it's also a great responsibility, because we've got to say right. And listen, we're not got to say the right things because we want to please people. We've got to say the right things because we're working to a strategy, and the only way to achieve that strategy is by communicating with more and more people. Thanks, Luton Lyon, Men of England speech was great. The more people we can communicate with, and actually, that where are the Men of England? That speech, I'm not sure. That might have just come to me on the spot, because it was one of the mornings of Tommy's trial. I thought, there's Tommy's in potentially going to prison, and there's literally we had a couple of hundred people there, and I was going, where is everybody? We used to get 70,000 people out on the street. Where are the Men of England? This is about little girls that have been taken, brutalized, raped, some of them murdered, and there's a couple of hundred people here. I've come from Northern Ireland. I mean, it's difficult for me to get to you guys, and it's expensive, and there's people living in London and just sitting in the houses, and I'm going, why aren't you here? And I can't get to every demo because I just can't afford it. But
of course not. Yeah, must be expensive for you to get to them.
Oh yeah, I mean, traveling expenses. I mean, you're lucky if you get away without spending 500 quid just for your flights, your parking at the airport, your train, your hotels. If you get out without spending 500 quid, you're doing well. And that's not, I'm not Rockefeller, like, you know what I mean? But that speech was literally, people, we need to get out, and we need to do something about this. And I still feel exactly the same.
It really worked. It worked, and I'll tell you something. I mean, I was already starting to do stuff anyway, but I remember hearing that speech, and I feel a bit of a wimp saying this to you in person, but it absolutely inspired me to push just a little bit harder. It was a brilliant speech. I think it's one that between us, this sort of group, we all hold in a bit of I don't know what the word is. It's not infamy. There's not a word, but you know what I mean. It's going to go in the Hall of Fame.
Well, that's really nice to hear, Tom, because at the end of the day, you never know You know, I mean, you get more. You know, it's like this movement. You get more criticism than you do compliments. You know, but but that's okay. But the reality is that those speeches are designed deliberately to do that, to motivate people to you know, to come out and get involved in saving this great country. Because the bottom line is, Tom, we're doing this because we believe in it, and if we believe, that comes across. You know, we've seen the fakers, we've seen them. You know, they come and they go, and
people aren't stupid. They can see the passion.
Yeah, exactly. And you can't make that up. You can't falsify passion. If you genuinely believe what you believe, then you'll speak it out loud, and that's, you know, it's so important. It's just so important to get this message out, and that's why these live feeds, and that's why we've got to really try and preserve these channels. You were talking about that earlier. We've got to make sure we don't lose YouTube. We've lost Facebook. Basically, Facebook's finished. I don't do much on Twitter, so YouTube, it's gone. Which is a shame, because Facebook as a platform, it's a fantastic platform. It's just a shame about the Muppets that run the thing, isn't it? We can say that.
Yeah, absolutely.
We had some fun when we went to Facebook on that day of Tommy's demo. I don't think they were expecting that.
Yes, true.
I haven't got a clue who let the smoke bomb off. It's nothing to do with me.
I don't know if I believe you, but you know, we'll leave it there. But no, when Tommy got sentenced, I know you weren't there, but when he got sentenced, do you think it was going to kick off?
Is that now the day I was there, the day he got found guilty, and it kicked off a bit that day, and we calmed it down.
The day when he actually went in and didn't come back out.
I think that was the 12th of July, and that was that's a big massive
you couldn't.
Yeah, it was either the 11th or the 12th, and you know, obviously, you know, in Northern Ireland, we all go out and we watch the bands parade, and I mean, it's like, you know, you get about 100,000 people parading through the streets, patriots parading through the streets of Belfast, waving Union Jacks, you know, flute bands. You know, it's just a spectacle, and it's fantastic.
Wow.
That was fortunately, I had to you know, I had to make a judgment call on that, and the 12th of July won that day, rather, because we knew what was going to happen anyway, so it was just a question.
Yeah.
You know, there's plenty of people there to take care of that, so it was.
No, agree.
But reference to I thought it was going to kick off, and it did, and at the end of the day, that's what happens when someone is unjustly sent to prison. And I think the reality is, and I believe. I believe that Great Britain's just said every right-wing channel is live now, so viewer numbers may plummet. It's Katie Price.
We're still holding. I haven't been watching the whole time. I forgot to look, but we're still holding 137 people now.
Great, that's good.
So,
and then on my channel as well. I don't know how many are on my channel, because I'm not on the stream. But that's good. That's good stuff. So I think what's happened is, when there's been these demonstrations, there has been minimal violence. Especially when something really unjust has happened. Same as when thousands of people went to Speaker's Corner for the one of the freedom of speech rallies, when Tommy made the speech by Martin Selner, and the violence wasn't coming from our side; it was coming totally from the Muslims. The Muslims went absolutely ballistic, you know, and but they realised, because I think what they realised was that wasn't their Speaker's Corner. Speaker's Corner doesn't belong to Islam and the Dawa team. Speaker's Corner belongs to the people of Britain, of all races and all religions.
Yeah.
And nobody can dominate that. And we've had other times where we've gone back to Speaker's Corner again, and we've just paid a visit, and we've said, we're still here, and we can put serious numbers out if we have to basically stop you bullying people. There's never been any violence. There's never been any violence from our side whatsoever. But we've managed to put numbers of people on the ground that will basically stand to that bullying.
I've said this before about the numbers, and that we stand firm, but we don't go forward.
Yeah.
But oh God, I forgot what I was going to say now. No, it's completely gone, Richard. It's completely gone.
You get those.
Yeah.
As you get older, they become more and more frequent, Tom.
Yeah, it seems to be happening more and more, mate. I think I must be due to go in the old people's home soon. But no, so okay, so I noticed on the day that Jared Batten and all these other people were trying to calm it down. And I think I said to you earlier on, I did wonder if we were going around in circles to wear us wear us out a bit, because I know there was a few people in that crowd that were, I'll be honest with you, that were absolutely disappointed that there wasn't pure and utter violence. And they weren't like far right. They were us, but they were just people that had just gone past that point.
Yeah.
And it's hard, even when we come back and talk to them on here, it's hard to sort of talk to them because a lot of people just think that kicking off is what we need to do. And I don't. If you look at Black Lives, sorry, no, you carry on.
No, go on. Say what you're going to say about Black Lives Matter. We'll come back in.
I was going to say, if you look at things like Black Lives Matter, look at what happens with the looting that ends up happening. Look at what happens with that. As soon as that happens, as soon as you do something like that, you instantly lost the high ground. You instantly demonized yourself. Your cause is over the moment you do it. That's how I see it.
And I think it's even more than that on a personal level. There's a friend of mine, and he's from Northern Ireland, and he went across, and I had no time for Generation Identity, but he got involved with Generation Identity, and there was a fracas. It was nothing more than handbags. I think it was in Sevenoaks, and basically Antifa attacked a Generation Identity group, and there was a punch up in a car park of a supermarket, I think, and Dale was there, and he basically got convicted of violent disorder. And what did he get? I think he got 18 months in prison. Now, he's a family guy. He's got a job and a family back in Northern Ireland. He's lost his job. He's in prison in England. So, if people kick off, unless they've got absolutely nothing to lose, they're going to go to prison, because the police will just, and they don't seem to do it with the left, but they'll charge people on our side with them. They'll go for the maximum charge. They'll go for violent disorder. They'll go for, they'll try and put a hate crime charge in there as well, so they can maximize what they do. And they did this. They've done this with people in our movement. They've done this with the EDL. They've done it right the way down the line with people that they deem to be far right. And of course, the very tag of far right is ludicrous when you drill down into what we believe. We are actually really classical liberals. We don't believe.
I was about to say classic British liberal seems to fit. I think
we believe in freedom. We believe in genuine equality. We believe in a colourblind state. We don't believe that there should be any extremist groups, excuse me, that get power or prominence like the radical Muslims have done. So we are actually the mainstream, but we've been, portrayed as far right all the time. And if you get into a violent confrontation, the problem is there's cameras everywhere. There's nowhere to run. They might not get you on the day, but they'll come back and arrest you, a couple of weeks later. And what have you achieved? You banged your head off a riot shield and you go to prison for 18 months.
Yeah, absolutely right.
It's going to achieve absolutely nothing. Having said that, when there was violence at the demonstration outside the BBC, the head of the public order in the Met was quite happy to meet us, because we wanted to meet with the Met because we wanted to put across what had gone wrong. And I had an hour-long meeting with, I think his only superior was the chief constable or Miss Dick, Cressida Dick. She's the only one that outranks him. And I went there with one of Tommy's team, and we literally laid it on them and said, "This is what happened. It was your fault." And it was combative. They were back at us, but those things get noted and recorded so that they know exactly where we're coming from. So the police at the highest level know that we didn't go in there intending to start trouble, but their policing led to trouble because of what they did and the way they treated the people and the way they handled the whole, the whole scenario. So in a way, sadly, violence does get results, but it's a very, very dangerous game to play, because, any street violence can very, very quickly turn into a death. And to me, I don't want that on my conscience. And most people that come to the demos don't want that on their conscience either. If violence happens, it happens, but it should never be instigated by us. And
absolutely,
we must avoid it at all costs. And at the end of the day, the frontline police, the bobbies on the beat, most of them I think, believe what we believe anyway. They just can't say it. You know, they're dealing with this day in and day out. You know, they're dealing with Islamic extremism. They're seeing what's happening to their country. You know, they can't like it any more than we do.
Only thing that worries me with the police is people say to me, you know, about going up to London, aren't you worried about the left and stuff like that? And I'm like, when I go up there, I said, not myself and everybody else has not got one concern about the left, not one single concern. I said the only people that I'm concerned with and I've got an eye on is the police, because they're so quick to take out that baton and hit us.
Yep, absolutely.
I said they're the most dangerous people in the picture.
Absolutely, 100%. That's absolutely correct. You know, and I've seen it, and it's a double standard, because they never draw the batons on the left.
No,
never draw the batons on the left. But they'll draw the batons on us as quick as you like, and start beating us off the street. That's, you know, and we've seen it happen. You know, and we've been actually trying to calm it down, and the police have been swinging and trying to hit us with the batons. We're trying to calm the whole situation down. Honestly, one of the ones outside the Old Bailey, me and Glenn and Danny and I think Kev was there. We're trying to calm the whole thing down, and this cop's got his baton, big, massive, bulging eyes, look like he's on speed or coke or something, and he's swinging his baton like he's a centurion or like he's a Roman legionnaire, you know. And I'm going, hold on a minute, I'm trying to calm this down, you lunatic. You know, get a grip of yourself. You know, I mean, you know, calm yourself down. You know,
Jesus.
But, yeah, but that's, you know, that's what we're up against. But yeah, I mean, police. Someone's asking there, what's the answer, guys? What can we do? Yeah, that is.
Yeah, and let me add to that. So people like Black Lives Matter and, let's say, the far left, these people seem to lead with their emotions, and they seem to be unreasonable. And I've always said since the start of this show, and so just to add to Bossy's question there, if I just put it like this, I'll over dramatize it. If we had to save the world and we had a group of, I don't know, 10 people in a room, and some of them were this far left, this crazy ideology, and they were just very hard to reason with. But if you didn't reason with them, then something terrible happens. You can't kill them. You can't make them. What can you do?
I think, I mean, if we're talking about what's the solution to the overall problems that we face, I think there's you need several tracks, and we touched a bit on some of them earlier. I think
it's the people, though, Richard. I think I'm talking about.
You can't, if it's extreme far left people, unless they red pill themselves or someone red pills them, you can try and reason with them. You can probably try and go out for a pint with them, but I found that they are so dogmatic that they cannot be reasoned with. It's almost like they've got, you know, people talk about religion, they talk about a blind faith. I don't think that's really a very fair thing to say. I mean, because for lots of reasons, it's a lot of it's to do with, you know, a lot of history and a lot of doctrine. So talk about blind faith, one thing, but I think with the far left and these very ideologically driven groups and the Muslims, the Muslim extremists, the real extremists you can't reason with. But there are people on the fringes of that you can reason with, and you can bring across, and you can persuade that our arguments are the best arguments. Because, you know, it sounds very arrogant, but our arguments are the best arguments.
Yeah, they are, because they're the rational ones.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we were talking about earlier, we want freedom, we want equality, genuine equality that doesn't look at skin color or identity, that says everybody's equal before the law, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of conscience. We want true democracy, where we have total control over the whole of the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland and Scotland, and we want sovereignty again, which goes back to what we were saying about the UK. And I think those four principles.
How do you? Sorry, I just want to say, how would you personally define? I know what I think, but it's not about me. How do you personally define sovereignty, and being British? What is being British?
Well, I mean, sovereignty is a simple one. Sovereignty, it means that you have control over your borders. It means you have control over who governs you. It means you have control over what parts of the country that you live in constitute that country. So it's basically means that the the structural integrity of the UK is held together, and the people have sovereignty, so the people can decide who rules them. And that's again, it feeds back into democracy. It's fundamental to what democracy is. And what does it mean to be British? I think we're in a situation now where, because of Blair's government in the last 20 years, we've had a massive influx of people into the United Kingdom from all over the world, not even from the Empire. I mean, it used to be people came from Commonwealth countries. They came from Pakistan. They came from India. They came from the West Indies and other parts of the Commonwealth. It's not the case anymore. That people are coming from absolutely everywhere, and I don't
everywhere.
You know, I don't know why Iranians are coming to the United Kingdom. I mean,
well, I think I might have an idea.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know why Somalis are coming to the or Yemenis are coming to the United Kingdom.
I think jihad might come into this somewhere.
Well, this is it. This is it. I mean, this is the whole issue. So, getting back to the question about Britishness, when you have people coming from all over the world, if they are completely culturally alien to the United Kingdom, and if when they come to the United Kingdom, they're not really taught why Britain's a great country, they're brainwashed by the education system, by the media, and even by people in their own communities into hating the United Kingdom and looking at the United Kingdom as a hostile country. And we've all heard people saying that. Then we've got a huge, we've got a massive problem and a massive ticking time bomb. So to me, when somebody comes to the UK, they should be assimilated and integrated as quickly as possible and taught what Britain is about and why it's great to be British. It should be a prerequisite that they learn the English language.
Do you think there should be an age limit
on people coming into the country
permanently?
Well, I'll be honest. I don't think there should be a mass immigration anymore. We should have such.
Well, yeah, I agree. I think we should close the borders. Yeah.
I mean, the borders should be basically closed. We should really be very, 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 very selective on Muslim immigration. And that may sound very bigoted, and people might get very upset when we're saying that.
It's just the way it is.
The reality is there's still a very, very real danger from people coming into the UK with jihadist sympathies. If we think about the guy that's just murdered 3 innocent men in a park in Reading, there's hardly anyone talking about that now. You know, you're hardly hearing about it. Nobody's saying a thing about it. Right?
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
Salman Abedi that butchered little girls.
Oh yeah.
He was a Libyan refugee. So why are we letting? Of course, to be fair, it was Britain's fault. Britain shouldn't have bombed Libya in the first place. That's a whole other question. The assassination of Gaddafi by Clinton, Obama, Sarkozy, and Cameron is, you know, you'd have thought they'd have learned after the monstrous mess they made of Iraq, but they didn't learn.
No.
But the reality is that people coming in from Libya who hate the West and want to destroy the West, they should never have got across our borders.
I agree.
And you know, if someone's an illegal immigrant, they should be immediately, if they're found, they should be immediately repatriated to the country from where they came illegally. I don't care how long they've been here; they should just be gone. And
if we, sorry, please continue.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the immigration thing is a massive thing that's not even been discussed anymore. People have suddenly decided immigration is not an issue anymore, and it's happening. You know, I'm no great fan of Farage, but I mean, to be fair, Farage has basically been out in his little dinghy, tracking these boats across the English Channel, and you know, it's a big problem, and it doesn't seem to be going away. And the whole one of the reasons for us leaving the European Union was to get control of our borders. Well, that hasn't happened yet.
No.
So they need to get a grip of that. And again,
not even close.
The demonstration on the 1st of August, that guys, if you're watching this, get to London on the 1st of August.
Where's it going to be?
Well,
is that going to be at last minute?
To be confirmed, but it will be in central London, somewhere near Parliament, I would imagine.
Okay.
I would say it's going to be between Trafalgar Square and Millbank, right? So that gives a rough idea of where it might be. But again, I'm
basically get to central London.
Get to central London on the 1st of August, early in the morning, before they try and stop you getting in there. But that demonstration is about the 3 Rochdale rapists who groomed girls. Not sure whether they're actually convicted of rape or they're convicted of attempted rape, but either way, we know what they were at. And they were convicted and they were meant to be deported on conviction, and they haven't been deported. And lo and behold, one of the girls who was abused by these men bumped into one of them in a local supermarket. So she thought he was back in Pakistan or wherever he came from.
Wow.
He was in Tesco's doing his shopping. And so we're having a demonstration.
That's...
Hearts of Oak are taking the taking the Home Office to court over the issue, and by then we'll know whether the Home Office has actually acted on that information. If they've acted on the information and deported the guys, it'll be a celebration. If they haven't acted on the information, it'll be a protest saying, get your finger out and get these people, put out of the country. So that's what the first of August's about. And yes, there's going to be some amazing speakers. We're not going to give the game away too much on who's going to be speaking, but there'll be some surprises pulled like rabbits from the hat on the 1st of August. So it'll be a very, very good demo. And yeah,
basically it's going to be me and a banjo on the stage for the day. So yeah, fantastic. Get ready, everyone. So
by the way, I like bluegrass music.
You do? Oh wow. Okay, well, I'll play you a few songs. The rape gangs.
Yeah.
I feel that they are possibly even not even, it may not even be up for debate, but so far I feel like they're the crime of the century. When you look into just how horrific they actually were. It wasn't, I mean, one rape's bad enough, but it was continual rape, continual torture, just stuff that is hard to even imagine happening in this country as well. When you try and talk to the left about it, they say, oh, you're bringing up that rape gang stuff again. It's like, but we haven't talked about it once. It's not like we talk about it to you every week. You're never interested. And the news, yeah, they've done a couple of things on it, and then they've left it. To me, it's the effing crime of the century, and to me, it's so underreported. Am I off base there, or
no? You're absolutely right. I mean, the statistics are phenomenal. The statistics on who's doing the raping, and again, I said this in one of my speeches. Says it's they call it grooming. And what a disgusting use of the word grooming. Grooming was what you take your poodle to get at the grooming parlor, or your wife goes and gets her nails or her hair, and it's called grooming. It's rape. It's racist rape. They purely raped the girls that they raped on the grounds of their religious background, on the grounds of their ethnicity. That they even said it. They call them kafir. They called them white slags. 80+%, I think it was 87%, it's between 84 and 87% of the men who were carrying out these rapes, and not just rapes, sometimes murders, 87% were of Muslim origin. Most of them Pakistani, some of them Bangladeshi, some of them from other areas. There's some Somalis have been involved in it, and so on and so forth. But on the whole, Pakistani Muslim men raping white girls. That is racism. Now, you don't see
worst kind
shouting about that. Why don't Stand Up to Racism shout about that? Because the Muslim Council of Britain is heavily involved in Stand Up to Racism. So that's the first thing. Who is doing it? The second thing is, why are they doing it? And you've got to come back to what we started at the very beginning of the feed. Is there anything, and this is the question to the Muslim community, is there anything in your theology, in the Quran, in the Hadith, in the life of Muhammad, that would make men think it's okay to have sex with underage girls, to make men think it's okay to take war booty, as they call it, and basically abuse little girls because they believe that their religion allows them to do it? And that's the question that we've got to ask of the Muslim community. We've got to say,
and if you can come and live a Western life, then you must be able to ask these Western questions.
That's what freedom of speech is about. We're not accusing you. We're saying, look at the stats, Look what the stats tell us. Who's doing this? It's people from your community. Yes, we and they always retort, well, there's far more white paedophiles. We're not talking about individual paedophiles, or even things like the Catholic Church abuse scandal, which was equally heinous. We're not talking about that. We're talking about what's happening now with vulnerable,
a unique crime to a unique set of people.
Absolutely, and so that's the question we've got to ask of the Muslim community. But then we've got to ask a question of the establishment.
Yeah.
If we if we've known about this for 20 years and more, because when I was a kid at school, there was young girls getting into cars with Pakistani men that were obviously much older than them. That was in the 1980s. So what was that? Was that grooming? I don't know, because we haven't got any data. We haven't got any information, because the state has covered it up for at least 30 years. And I forget which one of the Labour MPs, it was either Anne Cryer or Sarah Campion. It's one of those ladies said that they believed that 1 million girls could have been raped. And when you look at the stats, that's highly, highly possible. So think about that. 1 million girls raped. Some of these girls are raped
I did see that.
hundreds of times. Could we be even looking at tens of millions of rapes? Not just, well, I say just, you've got 1 million girls.
It's hard actually to wrap your head around it. It's,
the statistics are just incredible, so it is the crime of the century, and it has been covered up. And again, why have people allowed this to happen? Why hasn't there been a reaction? I can't understand, why people have not reacted more vocally about this. And in a way, the English people, English people are a very placid people, and they don't get stirred up too easily. But boy, if this is one thing you should get stirred up about, the most vulnerable people in society, little girls, many from single parent families, many that were in children's homes, getting taken off and driven half the way around the country. This was organized criminality, and they still are only scratching the surface at getting to the bottom of it. So why are the establishment covering this up? Why are the establishment not doing more about it? Why aren't we seeing police officers prosecuted for dereliction of duty? Why aren't we seeing social workers prosecuted for not doing the jobs properly? Why aren't we seeing politicians prosecuted for covering this up and for being complicit at the highest level, right the way up to the Home Secretary? Why is Theresa May not being dragged before committees and asked about this? And Jackie Smith and all the other ones that went before, why aren't they been dragged before these committees in Parliament? And it's come to something when a Muslim Home Secretary and an Indian Home Secretary have done more to look at these issues than any of the Home Secretaries that were supposedly English did before them. What does that say about the state of the intelligentsia and the establishment? And that's why we're, this demonstration on the 1st of August, we need to have a mass turnout for this, because, like you say, Tom, when there's a terrorist attack, there's instant emotion, especially if little children have been killed or harmed, or women have been butchered by these psychopaths. There's an instant reaction, and a lot of people come to the streets, and quite rightly so. But because this is out there somewhere and we don't see it, and it doesn't make the headlines every day, it's very, very easy to forget about. But
it's also easy to turn your head a little bit.
I tell you what, Tom, I'll say it tonight. Where are the men of England for the 1st of August? Because the men of England need to be at that demonstration on the 1st of August, because we need to make a statement to this government that we are not going to put up with this anymore. We're not going to tolerate.
I second that. We need the numbers again. We need to show them those numbers are still there. People haven't had to spend out on demos for a long time. They haven't had to worry about that for a long time. What better time than now to show them what numbers are really out there? We know that you're all out there. It's whether you turn up or not. And those numbers mean something. They really do, don't they? And it really does change the...
And look, I mean, we've said this is a black and white unite thing. Let's see a whole lot of black lads come out there and support us in this.
Please, yeah.
Because let's be honest, if they're doing it to white girls today, they could be doing it to black and West Indian girls tomorrow. that they see.
Oh, absolutely.
Everybody who's not a Muslim, in the eyes of a lot of these rape gangs, is fair game. You know.
See, the thing is, as well, is mainstream media and people like that have driven, say, black people, Pakistani people, or whatever, away from us.
Yeah.
We've never driven them away ourselves.
No.
And if anybody sees
We've had
this,
them on our platform. Every single demo I've been to, we haven't done it to virtue signal, but we've had Asian people, we've had lots of ex-Muslims speak, we've had Jewish people, we've had Hindus, we've had Sikhs. I mean, that's just the way.
had the guy from Kuwait come running out and shouting at Antifa and sticking up for us. Yeah. Unbelievable.
And I remember one of the demos were on. I've got to be careful what I say here, but we went to the pub after one of the demos, and I'll not say the circumstances, but there was an ex-Muslim girl came and she started getting involved in the movement, and she sent me a message after about 3 or 4 months saying, "I've got to stop. My brother's found out what I'm doing, and they threatened to kill me unless I stop associating with your movement." So that's not us being intolerant.
What's the name?
Actually, she wasn't even an ex-Muslim. She was still a Muslim, and she was very, very liberal Muslim. If she was drinking and having a laugh with people in the movement, but she agreed 100% what she was doing. But her brothers found out, and she said she was threatened, and she just pulled out. We never saw her again.
My mind's got a blank in it. What's the name when you leave Islam? Is it apostate? Yeah, it is apostate. Yeah. Sorry, I went blank for a minute there. So, do you think if we, I mean, like for Britain, who I've become a member of now, I waited and waited and waited because they were small, like you said. I wasn't sure if they were going to do stuff, but I felt like doing stuff now. So I became a member, and in their manifesto, they've got the idea of closing the borders for at least 5 years, which I think would be good. Let's imagine they get traction and they manage to do that. What could we do in 5 years? It's a question I should really be asking Anne-Marie, but what can we do in 5 years if we haven't got more people coming in, to rebalance our society?
I think
and can we do it?
We can do it. Now, whether we can do it in 5 years is a different matter. What we've got to do at the minute is we've got to hold the line. We've got to make sure our voices are heard. We've got to make sure that the government realise that they can only push so far without getting a reaction. And again, I'm not talking about violence. I'm just talking about getting numbers on the ground. The more numbers you can get out to demonstrations, the more the government will have to listen. But what Anne-Marie's doing is so important, because this is what we tried to do with UKIP. And again, if we'd have pulled it off with UKIP, we'd be in a completely different situation in the country now. But we didn't pull it off because, again, the establishment didn't want us to pull it off. And the establishment will try and destroy Anne-Marie's party as well.
Oh yeah. I'm worried about what the media are going to do.
The media have already got the knives out for Anne-Marie anyway. But you can deal with the media. But what you've got to worry about is the people inside that are placed inside the organisation to destabilise the organisation. Now, when it comes to Anne-Marie, Tommy endorsed Anne-Marie on a live stream he did with me a couple of weeks ago. I've endorsed Anne-Marie. At the moment, now, unless somebody comes up with something even better, at the moment, Anne-Marie's the only show in town. There's nowhere else for any of us
I agree.
To hang our political hat. And plus the fact, personally, I actually like Anne-Marie. I think she's a really great person. I think she's very courageous, and I've got stacks of time for her. So we need to get behind For Britain, I believe. I
must admit, speaking to her, I really liked her. I found her very funny, actually. But also, she's got that. She's really funny, and she's also got that amazing passion that you only see in a few people. It's really there. She's real. She means it.
She's put a life. This is her life. This is her life. This is what she does. And I want to see her succeed. I would love to get a seat in Parliament. And again, okay, if people don't want to support Anne-Marie, well, then go and stand as an independent yourself. Disrupt the political balance. We've got to be a disrupting force, and no doubt there'll be other political players will come on the scene as well. But to me, if for working class people, For Britain is the answer. I mean, no doubt Farage will probably do something, in the years to come. He's talking about doing this thing with the Reform Party. Well, that'll probably appeal to maybe people in Middle England and so on and so forth that wouldn't vote for him.
The trouble is with Farage is he never sees anything through.
Well, to be fair to Farage, he did get his Brexit. I mean, I think that's
I'll give him that.
And
all day long.
I'm not a fan of Farage because what he did to our movement and the way he spoke about our movement. So but I am, credit where credit's due. If it wasn't for Nigel Farage, we would not be in the position we're in now. We're in a very
agreed
in terms of Brexit. I still don't think that battle's completely won. But you asked a question about what do we do?
Yeah.
Let's say we close the borders and we're in a situation where the Muslim immigration has stopped completely. Then what we've got to do, we've got to start a process of education, and we've got to educate first of all our own children. And I think this is very important. Obviously, my children all believe what I believe because I beat it into them from a very early age. I didn't beat it into them. They're all grown up anyway, and they can all beat me up now anyway. But I basically taught them why it was important to be patriotic, why it was important to be God-fearing, and so on and so forth. So they've had that drummed into them from me from no age. But not everybody has had the information that I've had for a long, long time. So what we've got to do is basically find ways of educating young children. And I was thinking about this the other day. Why doesn't somebody out there that's got a little bit of a gift when it comes to writing, a little bit of a gift when it comes to cartoons, why don't we do children's books about British history and about
100%? That
and you could do little books, and you could do a series of them. You could do them just little tiny paperback things. You could, if you got funding, you could get them distributed to schools.
It's a really good idea.
Yeah, that's one thing that you could do, and it would be very simple. You could make videos for children and get them onto YouTube so the kids can watch them on YouTube and that sort of thing. Because we need a way to get the children of England understanding, not just England, the children of the UK understanding what this great country is all about and why Britain is great and why it's great to be British. And that does not matter whether you're from an Indian background, a West Indian background, an African background, whatever background you're coming from. We need to educate those children.
Can I say something? And this will be taken as racist, but I don't mean it this way. But you go back in time, I think even 300 years ago, that there were black people in court, in the royal court. But you go back in history and say you recreate it. Yes, it was white. It was a white country. Why is that a problem? If I see us recreate our history and it's got full of white people for the first God knows how many 100 years, well, it's just the truth. It's it's nothing more than the truth, and there's a whole story there. And
I mean, look, the reality is the situation that we're in now. We're now a multi-ethnic country.
Can you believe we're talking about skin color, Richard?
This is the thing. This is the crazy thing. This is what's absolutely, and the reality is that we've got to be in a situation where the skin color doesn't matter, and it becomes exactly what Martin Luther King Jr. said. It's about the contents of your character. And I would even go further than that. I would say I would love to see black people, African people, West Indian people, Asian people, all standing under the Union Jack saying, this is my country. I'm proud of that flag. I'm proud of what that flag represents, and being comfortable.
Come on, August the 1st.
Now, if we don't get to that situation where people of every single race and creed can stand under that flag and say, I'm proud of that Union Jack and proud of what it stands for, we have a big problem. Because what are they then proud of? Because and then they ghettoize and they go into their little ghettos and little communities. And that's the situation we're in now. So that's why I think the whole idea of cultural nationalism is far more important than this wacko idea of ethno-nationalism. Because ethno-nationalism isn't going to happen. It's not going to happen.
If it was something that you wanted to happen, if it was, that should have been done 100 years ago.
Well, even if you wanted it to happen now, it wouldn't. The only way it would happen is through absolutely grievous violence. And
Absolutely.
any ethno-nationalists that are saying that it can happen without violence are lying. They're lying.
Lying either to themselves or to everyone else.
How can you take 14% of the population and make them not here anymore? The only way you can do it is through violence.
They say if they offer people 15 grand, they're all going to take it and leave. I mean, what a stupid thing to say.
It would be a really good move for somebody who's living in the United Kingdom. They're happy to live in the United Kingdom. And,
NHS.
NHS. Pension. Good job prospects, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, all the great things that we've got in the United Kingdom. Be a really good idea, wouldn't it, to take the 15 grand and just go? It's not going to happen.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not going to happen. And what do they do? What do they do with the ones that stay? Well, then they have to go to cultural nationalism, which is what we're talking about. Because it's not, unless they violently subjugate them and put them out of the country. So this is a nonsense. The ethno-nationalists are just every bit as bad as the identitarians on the left. I actually think that the ethno-nationalists are. When we were doing podcasts, Bolton will back me up on this. When we were doing podcasts when we first started, we said that if the left kept pushing, it would create its equal and opposite. Yeah.
And Jordan Peterson actually said, I think it was that it would not only create equal and opposite, but the right would say, okay, we'll play this game of identity politics, but we're going to win.
Yeah.
And he said that'll be the difference. And he said it will be pretty bad.
Well, the sad thing is, the sad fact is that nobody wins in that game. It's there is no winners. What you do is you fill a whole lot of prison cells and a whole lot of graveyards. And at the end of it, that was a really bad idea. How did we get into that? And then those of us that are saying we need to come together and we need to create unity at the foot of the Union Jack and say, this is what you're proud of. You're proud of this flag and what it represents. And that's what we've got. But you can't coerce people into that. You can only do that through reason.
No.
Presenting them with the facts. So that's why education is so important. So we need to go through. There's a lot of talk now about what they call the slow march through the institutions. And really the thinking is on the right that the left have won. They've won the institutions, they've taken over the institutions, and they control everything. And I think that's absolutely right. But then the right turn and say, well, there's nothing we can really do about this. Nonsense. If you have political power, you can do something about it. We've got to
Johnson said that he was going to be looking at these institutions and pulling them apart. And
well, let's wait and see. I mean, the problem is, I believe that the Conservative Party is one of those institutions that's been infiltrated by the left. I call it the Conservative and Communist Party, and I've called it that for years. Yeah. And I said when we're at the BBC, I said, don't trust Boris Johnson. You cannot trust him. He is a globalist. He might get Brexit done, but he is a globalist at heart. So he does not believe what we believe. And so this is why it's so important to really, you see, if Anne-Marie or a party like Anne-Marie starts taking serious votes off the Tories, they will change. That's how we got Brexit. That's what Farage's genius was. They will change. If we get people voting to stop Islamic extremists coming into our country, then the Conservative Party will change. If the opinion polls show that people are basically interested in the politics that Anne-Marie's pushing, then the mainstream parties will change. So even if you don't actually gain mainstream political power, it moves the center of gravity to the position that you want it to be at. So that's
a very minimum. It turns you into a pressure group, doesn't it?
Yes, it does, exactly. And I mean that's why Anne-Marie's party is part of the solution, and it would be an amazing thing. If we got Anne-Marie into Parliament, we got Tommy into Parliament, we got a few others into Parliament, it would be a political earthquake.
I think there's a lot of. I've said this I actually asked Anne-Marie, and she answered the question like an effing boss. I said to her, "Are you aware of all the latent support there is out there for you?" And she just said yes. And I thought, how cool is that? But since I've been doing this, people will talk about UKIP and this and that, but there's been a universal praise of Anne-Marie Waters. It's a quiet rumbling, but it's there.
Oh,
and I honestly feel that and I love what she's doing at the moment with the YouTube channels, and I think she's really spot on. And I do think that I've spoken to people already since the interview did with her, and I swear to God, I'll just take one case. Somebody said to me that she'd won her over, but they also said, and this was huge. They said, I don't vote. And this has made me say I'm going to go to the ballot box if I can, if there's a candidate. And I'm gonna vote for her. Have we lost the signal?
No, I'm still here. Still here.
Yeah. Yeah, he's gonna go vote for her. And I spoke to a few people that have said that was the sort of final straw, that seeing her, that interview, and I think that's going to happen a lot more.
It can happen, because when we did the UKIP project, UKIP's membership was collapsing when we got involved with UKIP, and thousands of people joined because we said this is the way to go, and they listened to us, and it was the right thing to do at the time. I mean, because obviously the establishment destabilized it. We didn't
Yeah.
do. So it's exactly the same with Anne-Marie. And in the northeast of England, Anne-Marie's up in Hartlepool. I think she's probably going to stand in the Hartlepool constituency when there's the next general election. But there was lads that joined UKIP as a result of what we were doing with the veterans of the DFLA and UKIP. These were football lads. They joined UKIP. They stood as councillors. And I think certainly three got elected. So they'd never been involved in politics. And they went from not being involved in politics to joining UKIP to actually being elected.
That's pretty amazing.
And they're still there, and they're creating havoc for the Labour Party. They're asking all the difficult questions up there, and we need to do that at local council level right the way throughout the country. And again, if people don't want to stand with Anne-Marie, stand as independents, but stand and make sure that you start disrupting, and you make sure you get yourself out into the. So there's two things education is vitally important. And we can self-educate our children, and that's vitally important. If you're a grandparent, start talking to your grandchildren about Britain's heritage, about Britain's Christian heritage, about Britain's history of the great things that Britain did. Yes,
our communities.
Yes, the communities. And also talk about the suffering of working class British people. Talk about the British people that work down the mines. Work in little. Literally in the bowels of the earth, in tiny confined spaces, scraping coal out of a hillside, working for maybe 12 hours, and then walking home for 3 hours, sleeping for 4 hours, having a couple of whatever it was, having a bath in front of the fire, and then getting back down the pit the next day and working 6 or 7 days a week. Talk about that. Talk about the suffering of white British people. And I don't want to play the race card, but if we've been told that whiteness is such a despicable and disgraceful thing, let's talk about the British working class that fought against Napoleon, that fought against the Kaiser, that fought against Adolf Hitler. Let's talk about the British working class. If we're such a heinous, privileged bunch, I'm sure you were the same, Tom. I left school at 16, no qualifications, went straight to work at 16. I've worked ever since. So have I got white privilege? We've got to smash.
I do sit and wonder sometimes where this white privilege is. I must have knocked at the wrong door.
Well, I mean, Anthony Joshua apparently has white privilege, and Lewis Hamilton had white privilege, and Raheem Sterling. Oh no, sorry, they're oppressed. The way these men are behaving is creating racism. It's
hypocritical as well. It's so hypocritical to be sitting up in a chalet talking about poverty, suffering, racism, when you have got no idea. It's this bubble that they're in.
It's obscene. It's absolutely obscene. Raheem Sterling with his diamond-studded bathroom. Apparently Lewis Hamilton doesn't pay a penny of income tax. That's what I've heard. He lives out in Monaco, so he's living in a tax haven. If he's concerned about his community, why doesn't he start investing in
I was just going to say, perhaps he's saving that money for his community then, eh? Perhaps he's saving that money.
Perhaps he is. But this is the thing that incenses people and is actually creating a racial divide. So what we've got to do, we've got to try and not blow the lid over that, because it'd be very easy to, but just say, hold on a minute, I'm going to reach out to my black friends, people that are in the military, people that are football lads, people that are sensible. And we've been talking to loads of people like that in the last few weeks, and it's been great. But we've got to keep reaching out like that. But we've also got to challenge the racism in the black community. I've challenged white racism. I'm not afraid to challenge, and we've done it tonight again. I'll challenge white racism, but I'll also challenge racism coming from the Islamic community towards white girls that they think it's okay to rape, and also towards people in the black community that are talking about the psychosis of whiteness and these sorts of things. So we've got to have the courage to say, no, that's wrong, and you can't get away with that. I don't care what color you are. If you're a racist, you're a racist, and that's all.
Absolutely agree. And that's why I was so annoyed with YouTube for only letting me tell one side of the story.
Well, who knows what they'll do with this feed? But I mean, it's once it's out there, isn't it? And,
absolutely. Someone will copy it, hopefully.
yeah, exactly. I mean, well, you should better get the StreamYard version and upload it somewhere else.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So education, voting, and again, I think really just doing what we're doing and keeping our voice heard, and doing everything that we can to lobby and to agitate, to change the culture, and to get rid of people in the media who are, the Send Pierce Morgan packing campaign. I'm so glad that was a success. I'm so glad we achieved it.
I bet you are. I know it means a lot to you.
Pierce packing had only been set up for 3 weeks, and we've already sent him packing. So, who's next? Kay Burley?
Oh, Kay Burley, definitely Kay Burley. No, what was I gonna oh shit, I'm doing it again. I am getting old to keep doing this, I'll tell you. There is something wrong with me. No, it was about future. I wanted to ask you no, it's gone. Too old, Richard. Too old, mate.
Well, we've been at it for 2 hours and 16 minutes now, Tom. So it's an epic. It's like the Gone with the Wind of life.
We're going Rogan. Man.
We can't talk about Gone with the Wind anymore, can we? Sorry. I've probably just cost you your channel by talking about Gone with the
Wind. That's all right. It's payback for me getting you on here.
Quite frankly, Tom, I don't give a damn.
Me either. I do enjoy parts of this, but lots of it, and then meeting people like yourself. But Richard, coming from you, people might just believe it a little bit more. Would you let them know that people like myself, and I know there are a lot of people out there looking for views and subs, but not talking about them, but people like myself and yourself on YouTube, we're not making loads of money on here, are we? We're not.
Well, actually, I have a confession to make. Since January, I have made £16.85 with adverts from YouTube. So so I'll be retiring. I'll be sailing off £16 in 6 months. That's some value they're putting on me. Joe Rogan gets 100 million. I get £16.85.
You're nearly there.
It lets you know where you are on the pecking order, Tom. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So if you guys on today, especially on the Children Matter and Zero News, if you've seen Richard's face, or if you know him from the demos or whatever else, I think that he's being shadow banned. I'm not sure, but please go over to his channel and sub to it, because he's a brilliant speaker. He will keep you up to date with a lot of things that are going on in a way that I can't. Well, you can see for yourself. I'm not going to speak for him. But please go over to his channel. It is cleverly named Richard Inman. And you can just go over. Please go and sub, because he deserves a lot more people over there. I believe the things that you've done for this movement, Richard, are invaluable. And we need people to get over to you because you are also a massive, great source, a great source of information as well. So, yeah, please get over there and sub to Richard whilst you still can, whilst we're still allowed to speak on here. So we don't know how long it's going to be.
It's going to be, yeah, they're going to try and take us all down soon. And again, same for people on my channel. If you're watching this on my channel, get across to Zero News, get across to Children's Lives Matter, because again, this is a community, and
Yeah.
it's about working together. And I spoke to Tom a lot about that, about collaboration and basically helping each other, and that's what we need to do. We've got to do this. We've got to get the word out there and let people know that we can make change, but that it's narrowing. That when we first started this, we had a lot more freedom than we do now, and it's frightening the way freedom has been. It's
really
taken away,
eroded. Yeah,
I've just Luton Lion wants me to take her out for a curry with a £16 £1.85. Well, that means there's not going to be any beer with that curry. It's just going to be curry, isn't it? £16.85. Unless we get where you could probably get one for £3. But,
it's going to be halal, you know that, then, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I've already had pictures taken me eating a halal kebab, so you've got to be careful eating that halal stuff.
So I say to people, and hear me out here, I say to people that I don't always feel this, but I say that we're on the losing side. And I don't say that as in we've lost, or what I mean is the chips are stacked against us, and those freedoms you talked about have been taken and gone. And when freedoms are gone, it's very hard to get them back. And I do believe that at the moment, as it stands, we're on the losing side. Doesn't mean that we'll lose, but that's how I feel. What do you say about that? Because I'm saying it all the time.
I think,
but I don't say it pessimistically.
There was a very, very wise man who was extremely influential in government circles many years ago, and he got ostracized. He used to speak to people in the military. He used to speak to people in the security services. I'm not saying anything more about him, but he said to me, he says, we've lost. He said, and basically the people who run the show are saying, we're going to hunt you down, we're going to track you down, and we're going to destroy every single one of you. And he wasn't joking when he said that. So his position was that we'd already lost. I agree with him to a certain extent, but the fact that we can still make these videos, the fact that we can still do demonstrations, shows that there is still hope. Because if the Islamists or the far left, and let's not worry about the far right are never going to get power in this country. It's just not.
I think they've had their moment.
Well, their moment was in the 1930s, and they showed themselves for what they were. But but the far left controls the institutions. The Islamists control large swathes of the institutions. They control huge amounts of property. They own huge parts of the media. So we have lost, but we're the resistance. That's what we are. We are actually the resistance. We're like the French resistance fighting against the Nazis in World War II. We're like the dissidents in Russia fighting against communism. We're on the inside of a completely. We've got to realize, we've got to understand just how corrupt the establishment is and how dangerous they are and how ruthless they are. But again, I go back to
they've been doing. Sorry,
they've been doing it for a very long time. The reality is, though, the problem is that when I was serving in the military, the people who ran the establishment then were not the same as they are now. This has really happened since the days of Tony Blair. So what it shows, if Blair was able to do it as quickly as now, the slow march through the institutions has been going on since the 1960s. But what Blair did, Blair put it on steroids and put it on speed, and he just pressed the fast forward button. Blair
Hitchens said that he initiated a cultural revolution. Nobody even noticed.
Absolutely, no, we didn't notice because we were too busy just living our lives And because, you know, Brexit, nobody thought we could escape from the European Union. We thought we were trapped in it forever. That's what we were told. You can't get out. Once you're in it's Hotel California, you're never going to get out. So when Brexit happened, it gave us a little bit of hope. Farage was you know, and UKIP were agitating and doing what they were doing, and they did it very effectively. So in terms of resistance, we can win, but at the minute we've lost. At the minute, but we need a replay, and in the replay we can win. But there's so much that we need to do, and that's why it's frustrating, because, you know, you and I don't know your situation, but I've got to find a living for my family. I've got to, you know, use my time wisely between all the different things I'm involved in. And it's very difficult because, you know, I think I said to you before, if we had 10,000 people that were at this full time, or even 100 people that were at this full time doing what we would be winning already. And
I want to be everywhere at once. I want to be doing so many things at once.
You've got to pick your battles, and you've got to you know, you've got to decide
so hard
to do. But, you know, if there's any billionaires out there that want to fund us to do this for the next 10 years, which is what it'll take to turn the country around, give us a ring. We have
the lines open.
And look, the bottom line is we've got a plan of how we can do this and how we can win, and how we can turn, you know, like I said earlier about, you know, Blair basically snatching defeat out of the jaws of victory. Well, we can snatch victory out of this defeat, because we can turn it around, because what we've got going for us, the establishment hate us, and the establishment want to silence us. The media hate us, the left hate us, the Islamists.
But we are the majority.
But we're the majority, and that silent majority has got to rise up, and we've got to rise up electorally, and we've got to keep waking people up. And my friend John Yates from Northern Ireland,
oh, you there? Oh, I think Richard may have been cut off by a phone call.
Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
No, it's okay, man. I'm back. I'll turn that phone off, actually. Yeah. So the reality is, we can have a counter attack, and we can win this. But it's going to be extremely hard. It's going to take a long time. But we need to be at it constantly. We can't rest. We've got to keep going and keep going and keep pushing and keep pushing. And there's a lot of bad stuff going to come down the road towards us. But
how do we do this at the moment with this COVID thing? What do you think about all that? How do we keep pushing?
Well, I think what we're doing at the minute with live streams, in a way, it's been a bit of a. I mean, I'm furloughed at the minute from a work, so I've had more time to do live streams and so on and so forth. I'm looking at other business opportunities as well, but the you know, the furlough's actually been a bit of a blessing in disguise, because it's meant that, you know, a lot of us can actually do more than we would have been able to do when we're working full time. So doing the live streams is great, because we've got a lot of people watching, a lot of people listening, a lot of people waking up. You see it in the comments. People that haven't been involved in this before have got involved as a result.
It's true.
So we just keep doing what we're doing. Demonstration on the 1st of August. Everybody's got to be there. If you care about those girls that's been raped and some of them murdered, then you've got to be in London on the 1st of August. It's as simple as that. You know, again,
we need to really rally people. And there's a little bit of time between now and then, so I'm going to do everything I can. But we really do need a good turnout, a really good turnout. I'm going to be honest and say that sometimes we've struggled for numbers. And yet I know there's a lot of people out there that care and want to come. And, you know, again, I'll say what I said earlier on. Nobody's had to pay out for big money for demos for a long time. You know, this is one. This is the time.
Yeah.
Come to this one on August the 1st. Definitely. Mark, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. So you think we can win?
Oh,
you think there's hope?
Of course there's hope. Look, if there was no hope, there'd be no point in doing it. You know, all we'd have to do is just kick back and go, everything's lost. It's impossible to turn it around. But as long as we can speak and we can, the thing is, I think more and more people are coming through now that can speak rationally and coherently. It used to be there was just Tommy, there was just Anne Marie,
Yeah.
there was
Yeah.
just Katie Hopkins. Now there's hundreds of us who are saying the same things. We're maybe being a bit more measured sometimes in what we say because we're very aware of the censorship. But as long as we can keep these platforms going, and if to take these platforms off us, you know, there's technology there. We can build another.
Oh, we'll get around it. We'll get around it.
You know, and yeah.
Thing is with you, Richard, what I don't understand with you is you can do powerful speeches, you can get passionate, you can get angry, but I've never seen you do anything hateful.
No.
So I don't know why you would get any issues at all.
Well, I'm banned
But
from Facebook. You know, I'm banned. You know, I can't have any presence on Facebook. You know,
I find that incredible.
Yeah, it's just, you know, I mean, I don't know why. I mean, it's, you know, I don't think I've ever said anything hateful. I've always said quite the opposite. I've always said, look, you know,
I think you're one of the more moderate voices, and I think we need that in the movement. You're the person that will say, no, I don't think it's a good idea to go and kick that tree down. You know, and we need that. We need that, and I'm very surprised. I think someone said to me recently that a lot of I don't know which group it was, Hope Not Hate, or one of those groups had started looking at Colette and people like that, and so it was like the light bulb is almost coming on. They're clicking to who the real far right is, but not enough.
no,
it's still.
Hope Not Hate want to you know, tar us all with the same brush. They'll call us Islamophobes, which is a preposterous word in itself. You know,
Yeah, it's just a made up.
Again, a very clever word, but it's not. The reality is, it's not irrational to be worried about an ideology that wants to dominate the whole world, and that's you know, that's the reality. I mean, it's a totalitarian ideology that wants to control the world. That's what Islamism is,
and we've seen it on the streets. What it will do.
We've seen it, you know, and the reality is, I spoke at an event with Anne Marie way back in 2017, and I said, who's more dangerous, Anjem Chowdhury or Majid Nawaz? And everyone's like, oh, Anjem Chowdhury. I was like, no. Majid Nawaz is far more dangerous than Anjem Chowdhury, because Majid Nawaz pretends that Islam can be peaceful. He's lying, and that makes him far more dangerous. You cannot take the texts of Islam.
He comes across like a lefty. What is it? What's the deal with Majid?
He is a lefty. And I've spoken to Muslims who are still Muslims who think he's an apostate. They think he just hasn't come out and said he doesn't believe anymore. They think he doesn't believe Islam at all, but he pretends he's a Muslim. And because of that, a lot of people goes, oh, well, there you go. You know, he believes in the Quran, he believes in the Hadith, and he's saying that the Islamists' interpretation of the Quran's false. Whereas the reality of it is, again, if you talk to conservative Muslims,
so is he trying to recreate the narrative of the Quran?
Of course he is. Absolutely. They're trying to create a liberal version of Islam that doesn't exist. That's what they're trying to do. So that makes him extremely dangerous. Whereas with Anjem Chowdhury, you know what you're going to get. He's saying what he sees.
Yeah.
You know, and
yeah.
Again, that's a controversial position to hold, but I mean, it's one that I believe is true. So you know, there's a lot of challenges ahead. We shouldn't kid ourselves. There's a lot of challenges ahead, but at the end of the day, it's not It's not mission impossible. We can do it, but the margin. The problem is, you know, when you think about our children, our grandchildren, if we don't do it, it'll probably. Well, I suppose, what am I? 52. Might happen in my lifetime. Or maybe be a very old man when they trail me out and behead me. But the reality is, it'll certainly happen in our children's lifetime or our grandchildren's lifetime. And I don't just want to look at history. I want to look at a legacy of Britishness that goes on as long as Britain exists, and that's that's the thing that we've got to strive for. And I think the other thing is, I mean, solutions. We've got to get people. You talked about it earlier. Teach people about Christianity. I'm not talking about making people become Christians, but teach them about what Christianity is about, because there's great ignorance in this country about what Christianity is about.
It's woven into everything.
What if you go to the House of Parliament? All those massive, what they call them, frescoes, isn't it? The big, massive, the sort of woven tapestries, right the way, the portraits, all the way around the House of Parliament, in the House of Lords, are biblical paintings. You've got Moses there giving the Ten Commandments. You've got pictures of Christ. You've got, it's full of Christian imagery. It's the whole of our parliamentary democracy is built on, what happened in the English Civil War, and that was, let's be honest, that was a religious war for, whatever way people want to look at it. It was a war between Calvinists and Arminians. So all of this stuff is woven throughout history. And again, most people are ignorant of it because they haven't been taught it. You've got to go and find that sort of stuff. Churchill's History of the British People, fantastic. Read that book. Read Shakespeare, read the King James Version of the Bible. I mean, these are all British. I'm talking not the Bible. Obviously, the Bible's Hebrew and Greek, but the King James Version of it. These are all British masterpieces. Shakespeare, British masterpieces.
I know. My dad said to me, and like I say, I'm not religious, but my dad said to me, because we're both big readers, and he said, King James Bible, you got to read that one. You got to read, and
you've got to, but because it's part of our British heritage. You don't have to read it and become a Christian. I'm not trying to convert.
No. I don't. Yeah, not.
It's worth reading it to understand.
Important piece of literature.
It's literate, yeah, and and what you'll find is a lot of the phrases in those books in Shakespeare and in the King James Version of the Bible are phrases we still use today. So
to use a crude analogy, it's a bit like when someone talks about hate speech or double think or whatever else, and if you've read 1984, you know exactly what they're talking about.
That's their textbook, isn't it? They read 1984 and took it very, very seriously. And went, that's a
took it the wrong way, I think. That is very, very true. I was saying that the other day about the transgender side of things, and we won't go deep, but I said, do you remember? I can't remember how many lights it was, but in Winston in 1984 gets told how many lights are there, and he ends up having to lie about what he sees. And I said that I feel like in some cases, like I'm being asked, I have a primal reaction that I can't help, and it's normal, and I shouldn't be ashamed of it. And that primal reaction will cause a physical or mental reaction, and I will see a man, and I can't help that. And I'm being asked to tell myself and agree with everybody else that what I'm seeing is not real. And actually, I've got to indulge in someone else's delusion. And if I don't, I'm a bigot. What the hell do you do?
I mean, I think things like that are doing the left so much damage that the left will eat itself. It'll consume itself, because the feminists will be standing against the trans, whatever they are. I don't even.
That's happening.
So that's happening already. And again, I think with the Black Lives Matter thing, a lot of black people are going, "What is this? This has nothing to do with what we believe." We're very, I don't want to generalize, but I think I said it to Danny and Sean. To me, my impression that I get is that most black people I know are quite conservative in their beliefs. A lot of them would be God-fearing
more than I realized.
Now, obviously, if this younger generation has been completely brainwashed and indoctrinated by left-wing school teachers, which is a worry, that might have changed. but the black people I know have always been very, very conservative and very, very anglicized as well. I mean, you know, the guys I was in the army with, the West Indian lads I was in the army with, apart from the fact they were all hard as nails and you wouldn't even think about being racist towards them. Of course, they were all the guys that could box and stuff, you know, taught us how to box in the army. But you know, they were anglicized. We went out to the pub together. We did everything, you know, it wasn't like there was a little clique, you know, we were all together, you know, and I don't know, it just seems what's happened with this Black Lives Matter thing. I didn't see it coming, you know, and I don't think it, you know, but no. I just don't think they've got mass support, certainly among the older generation of black people. They might be getting some young black people stirred up. You know,
I do think there's a misunderstanding, though. I do think there's a misunderstanding about politics in this country. When we had no choice but to vote Conservative, for Brexit and everything else, I remember going to those celebrations on the 31st, and the left, I think, were there, and no, they weren't. I don't think they were there. Sorry, but people were acting as though the left had been defeated, and I found that incredible. And I kept saying to them, "No, they'll be back. They're paid to do this.
Yeah.
Not only are they paid to do this, they hold all the keys, the universities, the schools, the councils, and people need to understand that just because you have a Tory government in power, that does not equate anymore to a Conservative government. Conservatism is Peter Hitchens is a Conservative. There are very few Conservatives left because very few people even know what it means anymore. So we need to get rid of this idea that we have a Conservative government. We have the Americans would look at our government and call it left wing, wouldn't they?
Absolutely. I mean, I've said it before. I call them the Conservative and Communist Party because they're that left. You know, I mean, you know, Rishi Sunak, you know, the furlough scheme and the locking down of the country was just insanity. I mean, you know, between Matt Hancock and Rishi Sunak, you know, that will be far worse than the outcome of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Do you think this lockdown was a mistake?
I do. I think what should have happened, I think it should have been certain people should have been advised and helped to stay in isolation, people that are at high risk. I think the rest of us should have just got on with work and carried on working because I mean, you know, I just know from, you know, trying to talk to clients at the moment, nobody's interested in talking about business. Business has literally stopped. Okay, the pubs and stuff are open, but you know, the industry I work in, I won't say what it is on air because obviously I don't want the lefties talking.
Sure.
But it's just closed at the minute. It's completely closed down. So what do you do? You know, so I think it was a big mistake, and I think it's going to take a long time to recover. And I think.
And you say long time to recover. I mean, I'm kind of thinking this is going to take a generation to recover from this.
I don't know. I mean, who knows, Tom? Who knows?
I mean, Sky News did a thing quite early into the COVID thing, and it was entitled "Life After COVID: What Life Might Be Like."
Yeah,
and it was almost like they were talking about a dystopian future, and
totally insane.
People like to say that the news doesn't tell any truth, but that's not true.
Yeah,
sometimes they're a guide for what they're planning, and when I was listening to them, it was scary. It was scary because there was a dystopian feel to what they were talking about.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a question of, you know, we just don't know. At the minute, we don't know the impact that it's had on the economy yet. We know that there's been a huge amount of money thrown at this. I mean, I think the furlough scheme cost £370 billion. I mean,
Jesus.
That's, you know, and then Boris stands up in wherever he was last week and says, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to throw $5 billion at these infrastructure projects. I'm thinking, hold on, Rishi's just spent 370 billion paying my wages and everybody else in the country's wages for the past 3 months, and you're going to spend a whole 5 billion on kickstarting the economy. You know, I mean, there's just something, you know. So the whole thing, I think, I don't think the Tory government did it deliberately. I'm not believing in a conspiracy theory. I think the left wanted the lockdown. I think people like Piers Morgan pushed for the lockdown, as Piers mentioned again.
Yeah, people were pushing for things a lot, weren't they?
They were really pushing, and I think it could have been done in a lot more sensible way with proper social distancing.
Other countries didn't have lockdowns and have done far better than us.
They seem to have done.
The scientific evidence isn't necessarily there for the lockdowns, is it?
I think they need to be being able to track and trace people, you know, have local lockdowns, because it is a genuine thing. I mean, I had something that seemed exactly like COVID-19 at the end of March, beginning of April, and it literally wiped me out for about a month. And so it's a real disease. It's not fake. I don't believe some big crazy conspiracy. And I think the Chinese need to be held to account for it as well. And there's a
do you? And in what way?
Well, I mean, obviously, to me, it seems very obvious that there was some sort of leak from that lab in Wuhan. I don't believe it came from the wet market. I mean, it just seems very coincidental that the place in China that's actually dealing with testing on these animals that have got these dreadful diseases happened to be in exactly the same place where the outbreak happened. You know, I mean, if that's not a smoking gun. And of course, the Chinese, no doubt, will try and spin it and use some of their assets in the West to try and spin it and try and, you know, make it out to be something that started in the West. But, you know, the reality is it started in that virology lab in China. So they need to be held to account. They need to pay. I think we
pulled out of the. Sorry. Please continue.
No, I think we need reparation. I think we need money from China because they've destroyed the Western economy, which is a bit of an own goal because obviously we're the people that buy their stuff. You know. Yeah,
that's the problem. Yeah, we've just pulled out the 5G with them.
Yeah. Well,
do you think that's related to either the Hong Kong situation or the COVID situation?
Well, I think it's to do with basically Trump is I think banging some sanctions on China, which means that we wouldn't be able to get now let me get this right. I think the microchips from America, we wouldn't be able to get them because Huawei would have to supply them. So then we'd have to get them from a third, would be China,
right?
Which would be, that's what they're saying. That's what GCHQ is saying, which would be a security risk. So,
and Trump didn't want us dealing with China anyway, did he?
No, he's basically trying to, you know, and I think a lot of people in the Tory party, again, there are some sensible people. It's like, you know, we tend to generalize a bit. Not everybody in the Conservative parties are wrong. Not everybody in the BBC's are wrong.
No.
You know, not everybody, you know. So we kind of generalize completely about these things and pay everyone, which is what the left do to us. So we kind of need to, you know, maybe row back on that a bit. But,
I agree.
But I think the Huawei thing, I hope we do pull out of it. I hope we do cut ties with China, because I think what we've been doing with China has been stupidity. I mean, they're a communist country. They are Big Brother. You know, they're So yeah, there we go. Oh,
we've seen them.
There's no thing as a leak from a lab. Right. Okay. So yeah, I think Huawei, the Huawei deal should be off, and I think we should also disinvest, get all the Chinese money out of the country, let them just stew, because I 100% believe that that has come from the virology lab. And again, it's not me saying that; it's all sorts of, you know, professors of epidemiology that are saying that this has happened. So it's, you know, it's not.
And they've taken their time over it. They haven't rushed out with this, have they? They've taken their time to come up with this.
And they knew it was coming. They knew that the outbreak was there in November. And yet they didn't tell us about it until the end of January, you know. But also, I mean, there's so many questions about China, so many questions about the way ex-British prime ministers have collaborated with China. Cameron, Brown, George Osborne, obviously Chancellor, has done stuff with China. Blair's been involved with China and Saudi Arabia. So, you know, there's a whole lot of very, very corrupt people that have been at the very highest levels of British politics, have actually colluded with a lot of these nations. You know, they need to be called to book as well, as far as as far as I can see. I'm running out of juice here on the old.
Yeah, one last thing, because I know we're Joe Rogan length now. We've done it.
You're going to have to cut it up into 5-minute pieces, you know. But you see, the thing is, Joe Rogan gives all his guests cannabis and beer, Tom. You know,
that's true. That is true. Unfortunately, I'm limited by the screen, so next time I'll have to send it to you first.
Behave yourself. You're getting a bother for doing that.
Well, I'll tell you what. I can't remember what the last question was, so we will we'll knock it on the head here, and I will say a huge thank you for you coming on.
Yeah.
I love talking to you. You're a brilliant person to talk to, and people out there. Richard does these amazing serious speeches, but to talk to him and listen to his sense of humor is even better. But get over to his channel. Please go and subscribe to him. Give him the numbers that he deserves. And please go do it now. Because you'll forget otherwise. Don't forget to click that bell as well, otherwise you'll get no notifications.
Yeah.
Any shout outs or anything you want to do before we go?
No, just likewise, Tom. Thanks for the feed. It's been a great feed, great fun as always, and we have a bit of a laugh. But it's all serious stuff. But you've got to do it in a light-hearted way, and you've got to realize at the end of the day, all you can do is what you can do, and that's it, really, isn't it? And like I say, get over to Tom's channel as well. If you're on my channel, you're not on Tom's. We need to get these. We need to get them cross-pollinated because that's the way. That's the way to grow everybody's profile and get these. And what I say, it's not about giving Tom a high profile or me a high profile. It's about getting the message out that we've got a solution to the problems that our country's facing, and
building this community together.
We're building the community online, and we'll build it at local level as well. And the two things actually feed into each other. So yeah, it's been great. Tom, thanks very much, mate. I mean, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, man. Really appreciate it.
Mate. I'll get you on my channel next time. I'll interview you because we need to know about you as well.
Absolutely, you're welcome to. I'm an open book, mate. Open book.
Brilliant stuff.
So,
okay.
Thanks, mate. I will see you next. Well, I'll probably talk to you in about 5 minutes ago. That was a good feed, but I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you giving so much time, and we will see you next time, probably on your channel. So,
and let's thank everybody that's gone through this marathon. 2 hours 51 minutes. It is Joe Rogan.
It is Joe Rogan. We did it. We did it, Joe Rogan. Thanks everyone for sticking with us. Really do appreciate it. And we will see you next time. This is Richard Inman. My name's Storm Fury. This is Zero News, and I am calling it a day for now, ladies and gentlemen. See you next time.
See you now.